Hey there guys, this is Richard, your host, with another marvelous video. The Hulk is unquestionably one of the most adored characters in the Marvel Universe, whether through comics or movies. You can't help but appreciate Mark Ruffalo's portrayal of the character if you're an MCU fan. He captures the nuances of a scientist under fire while ramping up the drama as necessary. Many of us may identify with the Hulk's ongoing struggle to restrain his inner demons and find a healthy outlet for his rage and stress. Bruce Banner's link to us is eternalized because we can identify with his suffering as he transforms into the Hulk. We also know that he has our best interests at heart, which can make it challenging at times to see him engage in conflict. He's a strong hero who possesses the rare capacity to simultaneously bring about damage and rescue lives. Bruce, however, is not without rivals because of his enormous personality and power as the Hulk. Yes, he can defeat even the most formidable foes, but he also battles heedlessly and isn't always able to call upon the beast when he needs him. Like any hero, he has weaknesses, and his adversaries occasionally know just how to take advantage of them. The Hulk's strongest adversaries are those who not only comprehend his strength, but also emulate his characteristics and equal his ferocity when necessary. Numerous villains have sought to defeat him for nearly 6 decades, with varying degrees of success. Here are the people who have faced up against the Hulk and shown themselves as deserving rivals. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. The Leader. A 1-in-a-million odd event happened when a worker from a chemical research facility was carrying a load of rubbish when an experimental gamma-ray cylinder detonated. The confined worker got caught in the explosion helplessly. His entire body was subjected to the strange gamma rays, one of the most powerful forces known to man. For almost a minute, the laborer lived even though a fraction of the dose he got would have been enough to kill a dozen men. He appeared uninjured at all, but he was unique. He read every book he could find after he was let out of the observation ward. He memorized all he read and researched as a man possessed. His brain was like a sponge, soaking up information. He lost consciousness a few days later as the gamma ray's long-term consequences started to manifest. When he woke up, he had no idea what had happened to him, but when he caught a glimpse of himself in the mirror, he realized that he was no longer just a regular person. The gamma rays had changed the unskilled worker into one of the finest minds ever to have lived. My former name is meaningless now. I choose to be known simply as the Leader. Stearns endured a change that significantly raised his IQ following his radioactive mishap. His mind has almost limitless possibilities. He's supposed to be capable of thinking in ways that are above and beyond what is typical for humans. For example, potentially understanding 4 dimensions, etc. He can make extremely accurate predictions about potential scenarios because of his exceptional intelligence. It dabbles with extrasensory perception or precognitive skills. In other words, he virtually always makes the right assumptions. The Leader is claimed to have a flawless memory and be able to recollect any incident that occurred following his radioactive mishap. Stearns' telepathic abilities have also shown them to be capable of mind control. This ability enables Stearns to control others as puppets, the same as how the dominant mind or person works. Stearns has developed several weapons that are significantly more advanced than those on Earth because of his improved knowledge and comprehension. He has used this cutting-edge weaponry to further his evil objectives for corporate hegemony. After absorbing all of the radiation from Rick Jones's body, the Leader and Jones formed a mental connection that he took advantage of. Stearns is eternal since he's a gamma mutant. When he passes away, he enters the below place and is allowed to exit via the green door. Additionally, he can communicate telepathically with puppet gamma mutates from the below place through the green door. Maestro. Approximately 100 years in the future, the Maestro was a version of the Hulk that combined Banner's knowledge with the Hulk's more evil traits. Nearly all of the Earth's superhumans perished in a nuclear conflict, and after the Black Side launched chemical assaults, the human race was on the verge of annihilation. AIM held Bruce Banner in hibernation so he might survive the destruction and repopulate the planet with energy-based mutants. In the end, Banner managed to escape from AIM. The Hulk thereafter traversed what was left of the United States. When he got to Washington, D.C., he found Machine Man living in a bunker under the White House with a small group of survivors who were descended from White House personnel. That's when Hulk discovered that what was left of New York metropolis had been transformed into the dystopian city of Dystopia and was governed by a man by the name of Maestro. When Hulk visited Dystopia in search of Maestro, he learned that Maestro was the deity Hercules. Hercules instantly engaged the Hulk in combat to determine whether he still possessed it. Rick Jones's buddies Dacord and Pisfizz found Hulk after he'd fallen into a deserted subway tunnel and had dispatched him to see Jones. The Hulk agreed and snuck off. In his trophy room, which was filled with memorabilia from deceased superheroes and villains, he met with an old Rick. Hulk revealed to Rick, shocking him that his experience in the destroyed world had made him disillusioned with people and that he wouldn't mind if Hercules wiped out everyone in dystopia. The Hulk then requested a lab. Rick instructed Decor to transport the Hulk to the abandoned Alchemax. The Hulk spent days searching the Alchemax headquarters until he came to the facility's cybernetics lab, and a lab where several clones were made for unknown objectives. A few months later, Hulk attempted to persuade the inhabitants of dystopia to elect him as their leader, so they could revive civilization somewhere. He displayed his canines of war, robotic dogs he built from materials he discovered in Alchemax, in an effort to persuade them of his abilities. The Hulk sent his dogs of war to force dystopia's inhabitants to submit when they ignored him. Hercules joined the battle and defeated the dogs of war. He then provoked Hulk into a battle, which he easily won. After the Hulk finally gave up, Hercules spared his life to include him in his posse. However, Hulk sought redemption, which was just a ploy for him to conspire against Hercules. Before making a comeback with the bad guy Vapor, Hulk disappeared for a while. To bring Hercules near to him so she could murder him by turning into arsine gas, he had Vapor seduce Hercules. Vapor was subsequently turned against the Hulk, who froze her, broke her into bits, and buried those parts across a large region to prevent her from ever regenerating. Later, Hulk conducted Hercules' funeral. He declared himself the new ruler of dystopia as he started cremating Hercules' body. The people of dystopia objected, and they said they wanted elections. When Hulk used his dogs of war to try to force dystopia to capitulate, some of Rick Jones's pals fought him using a forge-made weapon. The Hulk easily defeated them, but Hercules suddenly resurrected and handily defeated Hulk. Hercules was slain with Forge's weapon by his minister, who said he had never liked him before he could slay the Hulk. When Hulk went to confront Rick about his buddy's botched assassination attempt, he discovered that Rick had vanished along with his treasures. The Hulk was then discussed remotely by Rick, who compared the man to his father before attempting to blow him up with a bomb. After surviving the explosion, the Hulk took over as dystopia's new Maestro, seizing power. Due to the centuries' worth of radiation he'd absorbed as a result of the nuclear wars that ravaged his Earth, the Maestro basically possesses the same powers as the Hulk, but to a higher extent than other versions. The present Hulk speculated that his insanity might also contribute to his greater strength. Included in this are some mental faculties, like the Hulk's capacity to perceive and communicate with astral forms, as depicted in the Defenders series. Abomination. The Abomination was created when KGB operative and spy Emil Blonsky purposefully exposed himself to more of the same gamma radiation that turned Bruce Banner into the Hulk. Blonsky was changed into a huge green-skinned monster with strength greater than the Hulk's at first. If the latter wasn't angered, he would have been more than twice as strong as the Hulk. Blonsky quickly realized he was unable to transform back into a human, despite the fact that he still had his mental capabilities. The Abomination had frequently teamed up with General Ross to battle the Hulk, but they were always betrayed. Initially, they conspired with the Rhino to seize control of the Hulkbuster base, and then they duped the Hulk into an alliance and tried to demand a ransom for the taken Kennedy Space Center. Later, the Abomination was momentarily lost in space, but was found by American military forces and brought back to life by MODOK and General Ross. Tyrannus' disembodied mind was rebuilt from his atomized body. As a result of the amalgamated creature forcing Banner to attempt the treatment, Tyrannus was left with the Abomination body and Blonsky was transformed back into a human. Until Gore and Lyra restored Tyrannus to normal, the latter was temporarily known as the Abomination and engaged in combat with Wonder Woman. Blonsky faced She-Hulk and Spider-Man in New York as the Abomination once more, this time in the form of a mindless beast. He subsequently regained mental capacity and was paid to steal hazardous waste from the Yucca Flats research facility, but the Hulk surprised him and doused him in poisonous waste. Blonsky often went back to assault his archenemy, blaming Banner for his situation. The Abomination has been defeated in numerous encounters by the Hulk's sheer ferocity and the fact that the Hulk becomes stronger with wrath, despite Abomination being stronger than the Hulk in a calm condition. Blonsky gained a great deal of strength and durability after transforming into the Abomination, which gave him many of the same abilities as the Hulk. The Abomination, like the Hulk, could hold his breath for lengthy periods of time, was still very resistant to injury, and could breathe underwater. The Abomination could recover from injury as well, but more slowly, and could enter a condition of suspended animation if it were in an environment with insufficient heat or air. He could cover a lot of ground with one bound, just like the Hulk. Despite sharing many traits with the Hulk, the Abomination also stood out in a number of ways. In contrast to the Hulk's rage-induced changes, Blonsky's metamorphosis was first and foremost permanent. The Abomination was first depicted as being far stronger than a calm Hulk, but unlike the Hulk, his strength didn't get stronger with rage. And last, even in his Abomination form, he maintained his intellect. The Abomination was quite powerful. He was at least twice as powerful as the Hulk when he was in his regular condition. The problem was that the Abomination couldn't grow stronger via rage as the Hulk could. Therefore, if the battle allowed the Hulk Hulk enough time to gather strength, the Hulk would have the upper hand over the Abomination. The Abomination had more endurance than any human athlete. Bullets, rockets, and high-energy frequency bursts are just a few of the things that the Abomination was practically impervious to, although not nearly as swiftly as Hulk did. The Abomination could recover quickly from the majority of wounds, including those involving lost limbs and organs. The fact that the Hulk's healing increased with wrath is the reason why he beats the Abomination in this aspect too. The Abomination developed gills like the Hulk so that it could breathe underwater for extended periods of time. In order to save his own life, the Abomination might go into a condition of suspended animation if he experienced acute pain, extreme cold, or prolonged exposure to an area without air. General Thunderbolt, aka Red Hulk. Like his father and grandfather before him, Thaddeus Ross, who was born and reared in a military family, spent a significant portion of his early years planning to enlist in the military. Ross ultimately decided on the Air Force due to the passing of a close buddy. He excelled in his class at West Point, served valiantly in a number of conflicts, and then graduated. His then commanding officer's daughter, Karen Lee, was someone he met and later married. Ross used his clout to ensure Betty, the couple's only child, had a secure childhood. Ross, however, grew estranged from Betty as a result of Karen's cancer death when she was a young adolescent. He advanced rapidly through the ranks, eventually becoming a general. He was given the responsibility of overseeing the desert base in New Mexico, the location of Dr. Bruce Banner's gamma-ray studies. When the incident happened that turned Banner into the Hulk, he was in charge of the base. Ross had a rather rough appearance and a history of being highly sarcastic, especially after taking on the persona of the Red Hulk. Normally, he regarded the Hulk as a danger and would do everything to get rid of him. Despite everything, he had excellent intentions and was ultimately a kind man who wanted to defend his nation and the people he loved. However, he frequently had an erroneous opinion of the Hulk, which is common. Thaddeus Ross, like Bruce Banner, was an ordinary person when he was a simple human. He did, however, have a respectable level of strength, speed, and agility for a typical human, perhaps as a consequence of consistent training and exercise. He had extensive military experience from his time in the army and was a brilliant tactician and thinker. He was an expert pilot of both military and civilian aircraft and skillful with a variety of firearms and combat weapons, including chains, swords, hunting knives, and other items. Prior to his fight with the Omegex, Ross also possessed the ability to absorb outside energy sources in order to instantly cause a metamorphosis event in situations of great danger and vulnerability. He could also produce electrical solid impulses as a result of his mental connection to the Zark's beast. He was able to leverage this relationship, which persisted for a long time while in Red Hulk form, to compel Zarks to avenge MODOK Superior. Since then, it appears that both this skill and the ability to absorb energy have been rendered useless. Ross was the subject of Intelligentsia's experiment at his request, and as a result, he acquired the ability to transform into the Red Hulk, which gave him very high levels of physical strength, durability, and healing power. Ross doesn't transform into Red Hulk when he gets furious. Instead, he must consciously choose to do so. This is one of the contrasts between the Red Hulk and the Green Hulk. Another distinction is that Red Hulk won't turn around to Ross after being knocked unconscious. Instead, he completely depends on his willpower to change from his human shape to that of the Red Hulk. Ross was incredibly strong when he transformed into the Red Hulk. While his power was limited by his heat production and the absence of a comparable strength-building mechanism as his green ancestor, Red Hulk could lift more than 100 metric tons with astonishing ease, and had a strength threshold much beyond what was previously being observed. Red Hulk hasn't yet been seen as being able to perform a similar feat, most likely because of the complex radioactive and cosmic cocktail that helped create him in the first place. Whereas the Green Hulk can increase his strength through gamma generation in his cellular structure to even greater levels. The capacity to physically drain an enemy's energy and use it to increase his already enormous power level was something he did prominently demonstrate, though. The most amazing demonstration of his strength is his ability to effortlessly defeat characters like She-Hulk, Abomination, and A-Bomb while competing with Marvel heavyweights like Green Hulk, Thor, and Angrier. Physically able to survive a direct strike to the face from Thor's hammer Mjolnir, Red Hulk was able to shrug it off with merely an X carved into his face. Additionally, he's faced many superhumans at once, easily shrugging them off and decimating them on several occasions. Although superhumans like the Hulk, Thor, Angrier, and Iron Man still hurt him, it might eventually lead to a knockout. Due to the thickness and density of his skin and muscle, Hulk was able to endure great water depths comparable to those seen in the Marianas Trench without suffering any negative bodily consequences other than the requirement for air. Additionally, he could function in a hot environment without any concern for exterior harm, and could tolerate direct contact with molten lava. He once jumped to the moon while pulling Thor behind him, and survived a deep crater-forming collision without injury. His physique was robust enough to withstand the conditions of space itself. The Red Hulk in particular exhibited susceptibility to sharp items in contrast to the other Hulk. Wolverine and the Punisher were able to pierce the Red Hulk's skin. Hulk could possibly go on fighting for days on end because of his nearly limitless stamina. Additionally, he was capable of forcing himself to remain awake for several months while only using his remaining stamina and adrenaline. He could also regain lost energy very rapidly, allowing him to rejoin the fight even after being stabbed, gutted, etc. The Red Hulk shared the same extremely quick healing factor as the Green Hulk. Hulk, on the other hand, was unable to regenerate more and more like his opponent could since Rage couldn't boost his strength levels. This didn't imply that his healing factor was any less effective. Simply enough, it meant that it couldn't accelerate as quickly as the Incredible Hulks. He was also known to be vulnerable to bladed weapons. However, this may be because Red Hulk was more frequently targeted by assaults with stakes and swords than his rival, who frequently used physical or energy strikes. Despite these extremely small variations, Red Hulk was still able to heal wounds that would typically leave people permanently disabled, such as the ability to grow new eyeballs after having his eyes torn out by Wolverine's claws. Red Hulk was able to maintain his semi-permanent maturity because of this regeneration. The Green Hulk would have recovered from the eye cut far more quickly than Red Hulk, which seems to indicate that while Red Hulk's healing abilities are formidable, they're not as strong as the original Hulk. He needs to remain permanently in Red Hulk form for more than a century before he begins to resemble an elderly person. Ross continued to mature like a normal person while in his human shape, though. He was resistant to the majority of known diseases since his body constantly repaired damaged tissue, including the techno-organic virus, which he was able to sweat out by raising his body temperature in order to kill the virus. It's also conceivable that this regeneration has also made him physically younger than his actual age intended by reversing the effects of aging. There was a chance that Red Hulk might live for virtually all time if he managed to survive all of the challenges against him. If Red Hulk consumed enough food, air and water, he could continue to operate for a very long time. He frequently consumed the entire corpses of roasted animals like deer, cows, and others, which may reflect an energy balancing element common to shrew-like creatures, where the body has to consume large amounts of protein to sustain a very high body temperature and, consequently, physical energy. It's unclear whether this is the case with Red Hulk or even the Green Hulk, since he's not frequently shown eating in large quantities. Red Hulk emitted tremendous temperatures and heat from his body, which became hotter and hotter the more enraged he became, while Green Hulk grew his strength with his rage. When compared to the Green Hulk, Red Hulk's body couldn't withstand the extreme heat he produced when his rage erupted out of control. The heat was so extreme that it would likely cause every liquid to instantly evaporate, unlike other creatures who would typically merely sweat it out, thus roasting Red Hulk from the inside out. As a result, he became extremely lightheaded, lost awareness of his body, and experienced severe agony if the situation continued. The Incredible Hulk was able to develop strength, but Hulk was unable to do so. But by siphoning strength from adversaries and channeling it into his own energy, he was able to further increase his already incredible levels of strength. Similar to how Rogue's absorption powers operate, although he couldn't acquire previously unseen skills that she can, a brush of the skin, unless purposeful, didn't hurt inadvertent victims. In addition, Red Hulk has the ability to suddenly unleash the energy that had been gathered inside of him in a fire-like manner, which could be used to both burn and knock back foes. He occasionally had the ability to ignite himself on fire with the same force, appearing to be breathing fire as he growled animalistically at his foes. The Red She-Hulk even referred to the Red Hulk as a reactor without a cooling system, after he was overloaded from absorbing too much energy, which is why the Red Hulk became extremely exhausted and lightheaded. Additionally, it was demonstrated that he had a terrible reaction to negative energy, which caused him extreme discomfort that was beyond what a Hulk could tolerate, and may have even caused an allergic reaction inside his physiognomy. He was also vulnerable to mental attacks, mostly because, unlike when the Hulk is in rage mode, his rage didn't completely engulf his head. But aside from a brief encounter with Emma Frost during the Avengers vs. X-Men arc, this tissue hasn't been much of a problem lately because of a mental helmet that protects against psychic attack. It's unknown if he still possessed the heightened power level from his energy vampirism or whether it was only a temporary infusion of force, even though this capacity had seemed to have short-circuited in an effort to drain the Omegex.
What's that?
That monster destroyed the antenna. But look at us. The procedure
UFOs, Vector, Ironclad, Vapor, and X-Ray went to considerable efforts to replicate the accident that gave rise to the Fantastic Four. In an effort to do so, they even hired the engineers who developed the original shuttle to try to replicate it precisely. The effort was successful, but Bruce Banner was able to bring down the shuttle because he believed it had unintentionally been exposed to cosmic radiation after finding their ground control station. Despite gaining strength, the Four attacked Banner as soon as they touched down, thinking they could have gained even more strength if he hadn't intervened. However, they were defeated when Banner turned into the Hulk, their new abilities being no match for Banner's unmatched strength and their lack of teamwork. They lost this battle, but they later evolved into the supercriminals known as the UFOs. When Electro launched a massive jailbreak, the UFOs were able to escape from the raft. Simon Utrecht, better known as Vector, was a politician and businessman who yearned for more authority. He recruited a crew in the hopes of getting superpowers and used his resources to duplicate every aspect of the Fantastic Four's space trip. Cosmic rays gave Vector the ability to telekinetically move objects. Extremely strong, he was even able to rip the majority of the Hulk's skin and muscle tissue off his body by concentrating his force into blasts, and he was also able to fly. Simon Utrecht recruited Vapor, or Anne Darnell, to work as the spacecraft's life support engineer. The older sister of Jimmy Darnell is Anne. When entering an opponent's body, Vapor has the power to change into any known gas, generally the most terrible poison she can think of. For some very few moments, Vapor may temporarily turn into her completely human nature. Simon Utrecht hired X-Ray, or Jimmy Darnell, to be the fuel propulsion systems engineer. X-Ray has been permanently changed into a live energy field that is impervious to most physical injuries and is intangible and possesses the ability to release powerful blasts that have been proven to be capable of harming even the Hulk. X-Ray has the capacity to fly and disappear. The Hulk can be transformed back into Bruce Banner via X-ray using negative gamma rays. However, this only works while he's awake. Simon Utrecht recruited Ironclad, or Michael Steele, because he's an expert scientist, engineer, and pilot. Organic metal has been permanently incorporated into Ironclad. Steele is able to raise or reduce his own weight, hanging in the air or smashing like a mountain, and he possesses superhuman strength and durability. Brian Banner. Dr. Brian David Banner was Rebecca's violent husband and the biological father of Bruce Banner, better known as the Hulk. He was looking into gamma radiation when he saw a sight of the monstrous creature known as the One Below All, which caused him to pause his research. When Bruce was born, Brian showed immediate disregard for the child, murdering his mother in front of him as they attempted to flee. Despite being exonerated, he was detained and sent to a mental hospital after bragging about it while intoxicated. Bruce was bitter, yet welcomed him back into his life 15 years later. Bruce unintentionally murdered him during a confrontation and erased these memories. Brian, who had been revived during the Chaos War as a hybrid of the Devil and the Guilt Hulk, battled his son and fed on his anxieties, but was overcome when Jarella instructed Bruce to face them. He was taken to the Below Place, where the One Below All lives, after being exposed to gamma radiation. His soul was taken by the evil force, who then used him to carry out its plans in the outside world. When the leader, a villain from the Hulk, arrived at the Below Place to carry out the One Below All's plot to be the only presence left in the multiverse, he absorbed Brian's soul, severing his connection to the terrible being. The strength Bruce attributes to Brian is accurate. Bruce turned up to be an awful monster because, as a boy, he witnessed his father as a formidable monster. Although Brian was scared by his kid, he had little trouble overcoming the Hulks and shooting green fire blasts. After the One Below All utilized Brian's soul as its vehicle to pass through the imagined green door related to gamma mutates, Brian showed the capacity to inhabit their bodies. Jailbait, Sasquatch, the Hulk, and the Absorbing Man were all under his power. Zemnu. Before sneaking past numerous guards and boarding a supply ship, Zemnu was one of several prisoners in an exile world. He was forced to crash land on Earth since the kidnapped vessel could only get him halfway home. Electrician Joe Harper discovered his comatose, non-functioning body in Black Tree Swamp. Harper transported Zemnu's body to his workshop in the hopes that by fixing his cybernetic components, he might resuscitate the deceased. He electrolyzed Zemnu there to bring him back to life. Zemnu disclosed that he was a prisoner while recharging, and then used his hypnosis rays to hypnotize Harper. After proving that his hypnosis did in fact work on people, Zemnu roused Harper from his stupor and disclosed his scheme to hypnotize everyone in order to build a new ship that could carry him home. The amount of force required to launch the ship would set off a series of geological occurrences that would shatter the Earth. Even though Harper felt that Zemnu was only happy to have someone to gloat and brag about, he was to be taken along and spared the destiny of the rest of this world because it was Harper who brought Zemnu back to life. With his hypnosis rays, Zemnu hypnotized the whole human species and instructed them to create and build his new spacecraft. When Zemnu was about to leave, two crossed wires produced a short circuit, which put him in a state of shock, and Joe Harper was able to save the Earth by destroying the vessel. Zemnu was subsequently sent into orbit around the Sun by Harper, who only used a small portion of the power he'd planned to use. Only Joe recalled Zemnu had ever arrived, as his hypnosis ray stopped working as soon as he passed through the Earth's atmosphere. Although the range appears to be reliant on the energy Zemnu had absorbed, Zemnu is capable of emitting hypnotic rays that can pierce most materials and be projected across huge distances, large enough to encircle the Earth. These rays render those who are exposed loyal to his command commands, and even caused them to perceive Zemnu as a knowledgeable and kind leader. Immunity to Zemnu's hypnotic rays can be obtained by contact with his body. Additionally, it appears that Zemnu has the ability to control inanimate objects. Zemnu can inhabit a host body and then reconstruct himself from dispersed atoms. This victim appears to transform over time into his new body, one that resembles and functions much like his previous one, and not merely a passing host. Recently, it was found that Zemnu could direct the creation of human Zem hybrids from the humans he fed on. The Red King. The Red King, often referred to as Angmo Asan II, was the son of Angmo, the father emperor of Sakar. The father of Angmo Asan II was an imperial soldier turned warlord whose accomplishments during the Wars of Empire brought the Imperial nations together, and during the Spike War protected the planet from alien invasion. Angmo II, known as the Red King, succeeded the kingdom following the death of his father. As the new king, Angmo was quite different from his warrior-like father. He was conceited and immature, craved power and glory, and had no morality on how to get them. Angmo's father had noted similar characteristics in his son and believed that, should he ever get to the throne, Angmo II constituted a threat to the world and its inhabitants. Hiroim the Shamed, the king's war-bound shadow, was assigned to kill the prince. Hiroim's refusal to kill a kid was the only thing that kept the prince alive. When the Hulk unintentionally was sent to Sakar, the Red King still held power. The Hulk was initially made into a slave and taught as a gladiator to fight for the Emperor's amusement, but he soon gained notoriety as the Green Scar and Sakarson, a fabled character destined to govern Sakar and restore it. The Hulk and several other captive rebels are subsequently made to compete in another gladiatorial match against enormous robotic monsters by the Red King, but they are all vanquished by the heroes. When Kyara visited the Hulk in his cell, she explained that she was from a village that had been destroyed by a swarm of spikes that had killed her family as a teenager. The Red King, who was still a young prince at the time, had developed several droids to exterminate the spikes and their infestations, which left Kyara to pledge her loyalty to him as his right hand. Concerned, the Red King made many unsuccessful attempts to have the Hulk murdered before they engaged in full-scale combat. When the Red King unleashed the spikes on the Hulk, Kyara the Old Strong, the king's personal bodyguard, turned against him. The Hulk joined his comrades, the Warbound, and other allies against the Red King. The Hulk led his army to Crown City and engaged the Red King one-on-one, presumably beating him and halting the king's plan to destroy the city. Sometime after his defeat, the Red King was discovered by the Wilderbots and rebuilt as a cyborg, guiding Crown City survivors to safety and eventually coming to regret his previous deeds, believing that the Hulk had assisted him in becoming who he should have been. Scar, the son of the Hulk, was followed by the Red King right up to the planet's demise. It's still unknown if he survived Galactus's planet-eating planetoid. He was an expert hand-to-hand fighter and military thinker. Without the war suit, Angmo has the strength of a typical member of his race who doesn't work out. Absorbing Man. American enforcer Carl Crusher Creel, also known as the Absorbing Man, was a heavyweight boxing professional. He was transformed by the trickster god Loki when he was imprisoned using Asgardian sorcery. Creel acquired the talent to absorb the characteristics of whatever he touches, utilized it to escape from jail, and soon established himself as a hired bad guy. Later, the Masters of Evil sought him out for membership. Although Carl Creel was reared in the Bronx, his mother raised him to always have high standards for himself. Carl's father turned violent after his mother died when he was still a child, but he nevertheless taught him how to work on cars and even got him a set of boxing gloves. When Carl was 16, he finally had the courage to defend himself, for which his father expelled him from their house. Carl started living on the streets and in the gym after that. He started as a street criminal, breaking into homes and automobiles, but while working out in the gym, he found his knack for boxing. Carl was able to express his rage at his mother's passing and his relationship with his father in the ring. He was referred to as Crusher Creel because of his combative nature. He got into a battle with battling Jack Murdoch thanks to his boxing career. Creel became an enforcer for the Owlsmen after the local criminal underworld took notice of his attitude. Carl was sorry for the innocent individuals his shakedowns had injured, but he felt unable to stop. After being apprehended, Creel spent his first time behind bars for severe assault and extortion. Carl was chosen by Loki, the Asgardian god of mischief, to be his unsuspecting agent in a plot against Thor, the god of thunder, at some point during his imprisonment. In the prison commissary, Loki gave the vicious prisoner Creel a strange ability he believed would help him overcome Thor, the ability to absorb the physical qualities of anything he came into touch with. The potion was made of rare Asgardian plants and was cursed. Creel exploited his newly discovered strength to escape from custody and quickly started a fight with Thor. Creel, now known as the Absorbing Man, became one of the toughest mortal adversaries Thor had faced, thanks to his capacity to absorb Thor's hammers and Thor's abilities. When Creel abducted Jane Foster, Thor was obliged to end the battle. Thor and Creel then engaged in a rematch after Creel trashed a home and assaulted the occupants. When Thor deceived him by striking the earth with Mjolnir and converting it into helium, forcing Creel and the ground to change into helium and float harmlessly into the atmosphere, he was defeated. He lingered in orbit for a while. After being defeated by an Asgardian warlock, Loki used Asgardian technology to repair him and bring him back to Earth, where he fought Thor once more. In order to utilize the felon in his plot to conquer Asgard, Loki transferred him to Asgard. But when the Asgardian king Odin ventured to question him, Odin swiftly sent the Absorbing Man into space. The physical characteristics of whatever the Absorbing Man touches or is touched by him can be bodily duplicated at command. This power encompasses both living things and inanimate objects, as well as some types of energy. The body of the Absorbing Man mysteriously undergoes a material and physiological transformation, and as a result, his body really absorbs the substance or energy he comes into touch with. Even though his brain is now made of the same material as the rest of him, he nonetheless has sentience while in this changed condition. He's been changed into a variety of common materials such as steel, stone, wood, and glass. His transformations into water, fire, snow, and silk have become more peculiar. He's transformed into energy states like cosmic, nuclear, thermal, or light with the greatest power. The Absorbing Man has mastered the art of just absorbing the attributes of things he wants to. Initially, he was susceptible to being duped into absorbing the characteristics of things that would make him relatively defenseless. It appears that there's no time restriction on how long he may keep certain properties. He keeps the shape that he last consciously assumed, even when knocked unconscious or in a coma. There doesn't seem to be a time requirement for how long he must hold on to one shape before changing it. He has the capacity to change into many substances at once. The Absorbing Man has the ability to absorb particular qualities of an object's shape or mass. He's also capable of assimilating the mystic qualities of things or people. Creel also absorbs the energy contained in an item if it contains it, such as a battery or a blast furnace. Creel can absorb the components of intricate machinery, such as tanks and aeroplanes, with focus. When Creel uses his abilities to this degree, he really absorbs the purpose of the thing he touches, not simply its outward characteristics. Creel has frequently imitated the abilities of things or people he's come into contact with. He's imitated the strength of Thor himself, the might of the Odin Force, the strength of the Sentry, the strength of the reality-warping cosmic cube, and even the strength of Dormammu. The molecular makeup of the Absorbing Man's body, clothing, and wrecking ball may be changed to replicate the characteristics of any substance he comes into contact with. He may create his own weapons by absorbing specific materials. For example, he can produce hammer-like hands when he touches a hammer, or swells to tremendous size when he copies anything with a lot of power or strength. He's received varying degrees of superhuman strength, speed, durability, etc., thanks to his mimicking talents. Armageddon. While Armageddon's father was killed in a space war when he was just an adolescent, the Trojan Empire's throne fell to him. The kingdom was about to fall, but Armageddon was a born fighter. Numerous wins against adjacent worlds, galaxies, and even solar systems were achieved under his command. Armageddon's wife passed away in childbirth after giving birth to twin children because he was too busy extending his dominion to notice. He trusted Lord Vitio, a friend and advisor, with even the boy's education. Armageddon's sons wouldn't come to his attention once more until after a journey to Earth ended with one of them dead and the other falling in love with the killer of his twin. Armageddon thought his son Trauma was a fool since he intended to wed Atalanta of the Pantheon, the murderer of his brother. He tentatively let Trauma carry out his wishes, nevertheless. Even Armageddon was taken aback by Atalanta's physical appeal when Trauma snatched her and carried her back to his home globe. Armageddon was prepared to support his son's choice despite his initial reservations, even when the Hulk, Silver Surfer, and the Starjammers confronted him and demanded the release of Atalanta. Armageddon blasted cosmic blasts at the Hulk and the Surfer, holding them back to demonstrate how serious he was. Armageddon only let go of the Green Goliath grudgingly when Hulk persuaded Trauma to engage him in direct combat. Soon after Cassiopeia, another member of the Pantheon, let free the Hulk, she also set free the Silver Surfer. The startling cry of pain from Trauma halted everyone in their tracks as the Surfer prepared to demonstrate genuine strength to Armageddon. Trauma had landed on a crack in his own armor and stabbed him in the heart. As he was approaching death, Trauma begged Armageddon to grant Atalanta and her companion safe passage home. Armageddon complied with his dying son's request. Armageddon didn't realize how much he loved his child until he'd passed away. Later, when Armageddon stormed Freehold, the leader's previous residence, he found a device for reviving the dead. He wanted to start the machine and revive Trauma using the Hulk's might. The Hulk accepted, but after he was fastened to the device, the Hulk pushed too much of his power into it resulting in an overload and an explosion. Even as Armageddon praised the Hulk's deceit and the blast destroyed Trauma's body, he continued to insist that the Hulk would eventually perish at his hands. Armageddon was one of the bad guys that the magic of a wishing well brought to Earth when it was unleashed. In an effort to get even with the Hulk, he beat and weakened She-Hulk and A-Bomb. Then he revealed that he'd modified his power channeling skills so that he could draw energy from the Hulk. The more powerful the Hulk became, the stronger he became. He struck the Red She-Hulk with all of his strength as she intervened in the battle. The Hulk destroyed Armageddon in a fit of anger. After Umar took the Hulk off Earth, Armageddon was later seen imprisoned in the Dark Dimension. Massive superhuman strength and durability are possessed by Armageddon. Additionally, he possesses the lethal Trojan power to use his body to channel and discharge enormous amounts of cosmic energy. He's endured a strong hit from the World Breaker Hulk in his rare appearances, as well as a direct blast that deflected the Hulk's energy. Even the Silver Surfer was no match for him. After overloading the Surfer with his own strength cosmic, he managed to survive a blast caused by the Surfer's immense power. Wolverine. The vicious mutant known as Wolverine is cursed with a berserker fury and is recognized for being both a great superhero and a deadly murderer. He was forced to leave his family following the devastating manifestation of his bestial skills, which included an accelerated healing factor, acutely increased senses, and bone claws in each hand. He was born James Howlett to a rich Canadian family at the end of the 19th century. With the monstrous Sabretooth as his archenemy and the Japanese warrior Ogun as his sensei, he traveled the globe under the name Logan for a lengthy period of time, unknowingly participating in the Weapon X program since he was acting alone. Logan had his bones covered in unbreakable adamantium, making him an even more devastating asset. He joined Department H as the Wolverine, a member of the Canadian government after being saved and helped by Mac and Heather Hudson. Later, Charles Xavier extended an invitation to Logan to join the X-Men, a group of heroes working to promote harmony between humans and mutants. Wolverine was a difficult addition to the X-Men because of his violent demeanor, and he frequently clashed with Cyclops, another member. But with time, he warmed to the X-Men and now views them as his new family. Wolverine has established himself as a notable member of the Avengers in addition to being an ongoing member of the X-Men. Additionally, he's been given the responsibility of leading the covert X-Force attack unit, which uses fatal force to defend the interests of the mutant kind. After breaking off his relationship with Cyclops and taking control of his own party of X-Men, Wolverine was also in charge of revamping the Jean Grey School. Wolverine was one of the first mutants to settle in Krakoa, the mutant-only nation where Professor Xavier offered shelter to all mutant kinds. Wolverine continues to serve as the field leader of X-Force, which developed as an intelligence agency in charge of special operations to counterattack assaults against Krakoa, despite his present suspicions about the cost of this ostensible haven for mutants. Wolverine's healing factor is his most noticeable ability. This enables Wolverine to recover very quickly from almost any damage. He may now sustain damage from characters with a class of 100 or above and carry on battling. He's capable of growing new organs and limbs, and he's even recovered from nothing more than a skeleton. He has great resilience to toxins and poisons thanks to his healing factor. He once consumed enough blowfish venom to kill 20 men without feeling any effects. It's been demonstrated that using large enough quantities can get around his healing factor. His healing factor overcomes the effect of nerve strikes very immediately, preventing them from having much of an impact on him. Additionally, Wolverine's healing factor increases his lifetime and gives him immunity to all illnesses found on Earth. Wolverine's healing capacity is based on how well his body is doing. So, Wolverine's ability to recover is severely slowed if he goes for a while without getting enough sleep or eating well. Wolverine's healing factor and adamantium skeleton work together to give him incredible durability. This allows him to withstand strikes from characters with a class of 100 or higher, such as the Hulk, Thing, Wonder Woman, Red Hulk, Juggernaut, and others, while continuing to engage in combat. His ligaments are almost indestructible because of the adamantium bonding, which prevents superhuman figures like the Hulk or Baal from ever dislocating a joint. Another of Wolverine's key skills is his keen senses, which are far superior to those of humans and even most other creatures on Earth. Wolverine has the capacity to see clearly across great distances. He's also able to see in almost full darkness thanks to his enhanced eyesight. Wolverine's hearing is also improved, enabling him to battle while wearing a blindfold and hearing at distances and pitches that most people can't. Additionally, with his skills, Wolverine is able to identify people by their smell, even when they're in a shape-shifting condition like Mystique and Morph. He's one of the finest trackers in the Marvel world since he can follow people and items over extremely long distances. He's also been compared to a human lie detector. Gladiator, since he can hear a person's heartbeat quicken when they lie, and he spots physical changes like increased sweating, enabling him to taste pheromones in the air in addition to just smelling them, as he did when he mentioned working out with Jean Grey in the Danger Room. Wolverine is extraordinarily powerful. He has a strength range of 1,200 pounds to 2 tons. He's performed feats like swinging tree trunks around like baseball bats, controlling an elevator with only one hand, tossing motorbikes and dumpsters, and even lifting and throwing a dozen men with one arm. He can also utilize his power to knock out extremely resilient opponents such as Roughhouse, Caliban, and Spider-Man, albeit the latter was taken down by a sucker punch. Wolverine possesses balance, agility, and bodily coordination that's much above what a fully developed human being is capable of, and falls into the superhuman category. He's been observed performing unaided jumps of up to 30 feet in the air. Wolverine has a limited capacity for superhuman speed. He's able to blitz opponents before they understand what's occurring, since he attacks more quickly than the human eye can keep up with him. He's demonstrated that he's capable of fighting alongside heroes like Spider-Man or the Gorgon, and even hitting quicker opponents like the Speed Demon. Wolverine has quicker reflexes. He's avoided direct gunfire, machine gun fire, and even the optic blasts of Cyclops. With the help of his healing factor, Wolverine can push himself for a considerable amount of time before becoming fatigued. Although he required medical attention after fighting an Omega Red's death spores for more than 17 hours, he was still able to do it. It's been observed that Wolverines can converse with nearby animals on a very basic level and comprehend their feelings. It's also been seen that Wolverine is able to communicate his goals and behavior to animals so they won't mistake him for danger. Wolverine has 6 retractable bone claws that are 12 inches long. 3 are contained in his forearms and 1 in each arm. They rip through his knuckle skin when expanded, yet his healing factor almost instantly mends the wounds. The bone claws have been known to cut through stone and even steel, in addition to being able to rip through most sorts of flesh. Wolverine's claws, when combined with the adamantium, have the power to sever almost anything and anybody. His claws have pierced even his most resilient enemies, including Thanos and, maybe most impressively, the Thing, Thor, Hulk, and Gladiator. In addition to his own willpower, Professor Xavier implanted level 9 psi barriers in Wolverine's brain, making him extremely immune to mental attacks. He's been affected mentally by a variety of individuals, including Tommy Shishido, Emma Frost, Jean Grey, and Xavier. In getting ready for a fight, Wolverine has shown an amazing aptitude. He's extremely clever, despite the fact that he occasionally has a more animal-like appearance than most. Wolverine's mental activities during a training session were previously described by Forge as superior to those of a human athlete. His brain activity during battle has likewise been compared to that of a very sophisticated computer. Wolverine has learned practically every combat technique used on Earth, learning 28 different variations of Kung Fu alone, in addition to the pressure points found not just on the human body, but also on some extraterrestrial species. He showed this understanding when he used a pressure point strike to beat Kid Gladiator, and when he used a precise blow to break the Rock of Buddha. By exercising mental and emotional restraint, Wolverine has also been demonstrated to be able to counteract the harmful effects of Chi-based attacks. Some of Marvel's top hand-to-hand fighters, including Iron Fist, Shang-Chi, Captain America, and Deadpool, have been vanquished by Wolverine. He can disappear to other talented opponents like Nuke and even Nightcrawler thanks to his abilities. Additionally, he has taught certain earthly heroes, including Black Widow, Storm, and Shadowcat, in various types of hand-to-hand fighting. The Silver Samurai praised Wolverine for having almost faultless technique and for being a superb swordsman. Kenjutsu is one of his swordsmanship techniques. Over the years that he's collaborated with the CIA, Canadian Intelligence, and S.H.I.E.L.D., Wolverine has developed and displayed superior clandestine talents. He's received training in the use of a variety of weaponry, automobiles, planes, and computer systems. Wolverine is a master assassin as well. Because of the extensive journeys throughout the globe that Wolverine has been able to do because of his longevity, he's said to be able to speak several languages: Russian, Arabic, English, Chinese, Japanese, Spanish, French, Thai, German, Vietnamese, Lakota, and Portuguese are among the languages Wolverine has reportedly been heard speaking. In addition to acquiring these languages, Wolverine has demonstrated deep regard for the cultures to which they belong, as well as an understanding of their practices and values. Wolverine, along with Nightcrawler, has long served as the ex-mechanic for the X-Men's Blackbirds. He's a very talented technician. Juggernaut. Juggernaut, also known as Cain Marko, has long been an ally and adversary of the X-Men. Cain's drunken father routinely mistreated him as a youngster. Contrarily, his stepbrother Charles Xavier had considerably superior treatment and outperformed him in both athletics and academics. All of that made Cain despise Xavier for a very long time. Cain accidentally discovered the Temple of Cyttorak and acquired the Crimson Gem while serving in the US Army. Marko became the Juggernaut, Cyttorak's avatar on Earth, thanks to Gem's supernatural power. Together with his accomplice in crime, Black Tom Cassidy, Marko frequently utilized his skills to sow mayhem and wreak havoc. Marko began to change after spending years acting like a villain and terrorist. He and Xavier made amends, and he later joined Excalibur and the X-Men. Cain was briefly possessed by Kurth Breaker of Stone, one of the Asgardian god of fear's followers, when he arrived on Earth. Marco eventually reverted to becoming Cyttorak's avatar and grew much more powerful. Cain was a part of one of the several X-Men teams attempting to shield Professor Xavier from the Hulk's wrath. Even though Cain had just recently acquired the Gem of Cyttorak, he was unable to summon all of his might during his initial conflict with the Hulk and was easily beaten. Cain was confronted by Cyttorak, who revealed that Cain was the source of his own frailty. Cain was given supernatural abilities by Cyttorak with the intention that he'd utilize them for selfish ends rather than heroic ones. Cain obtained all of his power after fully accepting his duty as Cyttorak's avatar. He re-challenged the Hulk, but this time, the Hulk was unable to prevail. The Hulk utilized his ingenuity to temporarily remove Cain from the field of fight as Cain kept pushing the Hulk back by using his own velocity and nearly unstoppable mobility against him. Soon after, Cain rejected all of Xavier's attempts to express gratitude. He warned Xavier not to send anybody to look for him before he left. After a subsequent struggle with Scar, the Hulk's son, Cain was ultimately victorious and sent into space. One of the most physically strong and powerful characters in the Marvel Universe, the Juggernaut is capable of competing with and even outperforming heroes like Thor and Hulk. The Crimson Gem of Cyttorak, which Cyttorak uses to transfer his magical energy into his avatar, provides Cain Marco with its strength. Cain Marco only controls a piece of Cyttorak's power, but still possesses enormous power, similar to how Jean Grey controls only a small portion of the Phoenix Force, but still possesses great power. Despite Juggernaut's enormous bulk, his leg muscles enable him to sprint at superhuman speeds, reaching 600 miles per hour, which is close to the speed of sound and potentially much higher. Juggernaut's body is protected by an imperceptible force field that renders him fully impervious to any purely physical attack, regardless of its size or power. Juggernaut can still be thrown, knocked back, or struck by strikes, but he can't truly sustain physical harm. Simply said, Juggernaut can't be defeated by anything that demands exerting physical effort. Juggernaut proved to be immune to the Hulk's strongest punches, Thor's God Force Blast, which is said to have had enough power to rip a small planet in half, and break the Prime Celestial's protective dome. Wolverine's adamantium claws, the maximum force of Cyclops' optic blasts, which is said to have had enough power to rip a small planet in half, and molecular disintegration by a reality war. Even he was immune to being exterminated or rendered non-existent by the nothingness of oblivion or entropy. Juggernaut has tremendous strength that has no bounds. Juggernaut's inherent toughness has proven to be sufficient to resist Thor's powerful attacks, even without his force field. Just magical weapons, cosmic levelers like Captain Universe and Onslaught, and extraterrestrial creatures can hurt Juggernaut. If he's hurt, the stone that powers him will instantly heal any wounds without leaving scars. He's experienced Despair's skeletonization, a reality warper level rise, and total regeneration in a matter of seconds. Juggernaut is said to have one of Marvel's quickest healing abilities, since Cain can't die, as long as there's even one molecule of his existence there. The Juggernaut can live forever without food, water, or oxygen thanks to the magical forces of the diamond that flow through his veins, making him eternal. Juggernaut is also immune to weariness or exhaustion, regardless of the amount of physical effort his body is put through. Juggernaut can't be stopped once he acquires momentum. He continues to run even though the Hulk and big mountains have been able to slow him down. Juggernaut was reduced to a skeleton at one point, yet he continued fighting. Except for his helmet, which shields him from telepathic or psychic assaults, Juggernaut's armor is impervious to physical attacks and is summonable at command. Juggernaut can always create a new outfit if his old one is accidentally destroyed by a reality warper or cosmic leveler. Ravage, a doctor who created a machine to treat his multiple sclerosis, a degenerative nerve illness, was the first Ravage. After being exposed to gamma radiation, Crawford transformed into Ravage. Along with becoming Hulk, Banner battled Ravage. After the fight, after dusk, they both transformed back into humans. Crawford has also modified his machine to permanently convert himself into Ravage, preventing him from ever again being Jeffrey Crawford. Dr. Jeffrey Crawford, now a permanent Ravage, assaulted his institution to scare everyone who had felt sorry for him. The Hulk then makes an appearance and joins forces with Ross's most unlikely friend to stop Ravage from terrorizing the institution. Sadly, rampaging Hulk's cancellation forced the cancellation of Ravage's scheduled debut. Ravage is a monster that resembles the Hulk and is also subjected to gamma radiation. He's stronger than the Hulk and can lift between 50 and 75 tons more than the Hulk can at rest. 100 tons versus 7 feet 2 inches and 1,600 pounds at peak mutation. Ravage's strong legs can carry him across many states, leaving behind tiny craters when he lands. He lacks X-ray or fire vision, but his gamma-radiated eyesight can see a dime from his greatest leap. Crawford modified his machine so that he could become Ravage permanently, and now can throw a train to the moon and then return it. Ravage modified his computer software so that he would always be known as Ravage. Wendigo. Paul Cartier, Georges Baptiste, Francois Latigue, Lorenzo, Mauvais, and other people have all been affected by Wendigo's curse. The curse is local to the forests of northern Canada and occurs when someone eats human flesh there under the correct circumstances. The northern gods, who are sometimes referred to as the Inuit, invented this curse of the Wendigo to prevent human cannibalism. The cannibal changes into the Wendigo, a beast clothed in fur that is almost indestructible and has tremendous strength. After that, he or she prowls the woods while devouring people. The Hulk, Wolverine, and Alpha Flight have all regularly faced off against the Wendigo. Paul Cartier battled the Hulk while changing into the Wendigo, then managed to escape. After fighting the Hulk once more and coming into contact with Wolverine, Paul Cartier was healed and college professor Georges Baptiste was transformed into the Wendigo. Later, he tormented an isolated group. He engaged in combat with Wolverine, Nightcrawler, and members of Alpha Flight. Shaman eventually caught and healed the Baptiste Wendigo. Francois Latigue, a fur trapper, subsequently changed into the Wendigo, engaged in combat with the Hulk after Bruce Banner stumbled onto one of his cabins, battled Sasquatch, and was taken to a shaman for healing. In a Marvel Comics Presents issue, one Wendigo engaged the Werewolf by Night. The limited series, Sabretooth, open season numbers 1 to 4, featured it most often when Sabretooth was hired to kill a Wendigo beast, which he eventually did. A fresh Wendigo appears a few years later, which sparks a conflict between She-Hulk and Wolverine. Talisman, a Canadian superhero from the area, arrives and offers to treat Wendigo's illness magically, but S.H.I.E.L.D. agents won't allow her to go until they can definitely identify her. The Wendigo is put into S.H.I.E.L.D. custody after being beaten by a joint onslaught from his two foes after a protracted struggle. After Red Hulk is attacked by a Wendigo drawn to his campfire while preparing dinner in King Size Hulk No. 1, it's made known that a pack of Wendigo live in the Bering Strait. The Red Hulk suffers a Wendigo bite to the shoulder, causing him to spill hot radioactive blood. He uses a rifle to repeatedly blast the Wendigo in the chest, wounding it, but the creature uses its long tail to destroy the sight scope on his gun. After killing one Wendigo out of rage and admitting that he becomes hotter the angrier he gets, the other Wendigos arrive to claim the body and consume it. Las Vegas is the first city the Wendigos invade. Bruce Banner, on the lookout for the Red Hulk, notices the Wendigo pack prowling the large gaming area of the casino as they're all huddled close to a fountain with sculptures. He becomes the Grey Hulk when he gets excited and is close to a scared little girl. The Moon Knight, Ms. Marvel, Sentry, and Brother Voodoo all provide a hand as the Grey Hulk battles them. Later, the Green Hulk arrives after being thrown into some rubble, but the Wendigos infect Hulk, transforming him into the Wendi-Hulk, who eventually starts assaulting other heroes. The heroes were successful in healing Hulk and chasing the Wendigos away. When Jeremy Biggs, a former Norman Osborn subject, meets the Avengers Academy pupils, it's revealed that Biggs' business purchased a Wendigo that murdered Steve Austin, another former Osborn subject with ice-based powers. A Wendigo was one of the Alpha Flight bad guys recruited by Vindicator and Department H during the Fear Itself narrative to spread the Master of the World's Unity program and destroy Alpha Flight. The tissues of the Wendigo body are far stronger than those of a human, in addition to its immense power. The Wendigo body can withstand bullets from high-caliber machine guns without becoming hurt. If it is hurt, it can heal quickly and effectively from physical harm thanks to a powerful healing force that even Wolverine finds difficult to combat. Because of a combination of the claw's extreme sharpness and the Wendigo's enormous physical power, the claw tips on its fingers and toes can pierce the majority of common materials. Only after the Wendigo's heart is taken out of its body can it truly pass away. Anyone who swallows the severed heart will be endowed with all abilities, including the Wendigo form. Zarks. When terrorists attempted to cut, stray rounds from their weapons formed the electromagnetic intelligence known as Zarks. Zarks, a humanoid monster created from electricity through an act of sabotage at a Con Ed nuclear power facility in New York City. When a bunch of terrorists destroyed the dynamos, it set off a series of events that quickly built up energy and absorbed the brains of the terrorists and many engineers. The creature can take on a humanoid shape and develop consciousness by harnessing the electrical energy from its brain. The creature, which goes by the name Zarks, battles the Hulk and Hawkeye before losing. At a Chicago research facility, the persona repeats its actions under the title Hulk. Before numerous scientists stop the process that generates Zarks, the Hulk fights the creature to a standstill. In the comic book series Hulk, Zarks makes a brief appearance to battle an intelligent version of the monster that possesses Bruce Banner's intelligence. Although it's vanquished by the Thing, Mephisto subsequently rebuilds the creature in the short series Secret Wars 2. Zarks, who allies up with the Basic Force baddies Graviton, Quantum, and Half-Life in the West Coast Avengers, is stopped by Hawkeye. The Hulk describes how S.H.I.E.L.D. finally manages to confine Zarks and brings it to Gamma Base. Thunderbolt, the General Ross, sets up a mental fusion with Zarks' body and engages in combat with Rick Jones' latest iteration of the Hulk. Soon after rescuing his daughter, Betty Ross Banner, Ross gives up control of the entity after understanding that his actions have endangered people. In the comic book series of the same name, Zarx faces up against Cable and Iron Man. The creature makes a second appearance in New Avengers and takes part in the massive supervillain evacuation from the Raft prison. She-Hulk's second volume indicates that S.H.I.E.L.D. has managed to confine the character. She-Hulk recaptures the helicarrier of the organization after it temporarily eludes capture and uses the life model decoys and other agents of the organization's defense systems against them. Later, when Zarx assaults New Delhi, the mighty Avengers capture him. Later, as he's battling Red Hulk, MODOK Superior employs Zarx in his services. Zarx was with MODOK Superior during the Fear Itself storyline when they were battling Zero-One and Black Fog to reach Red Hulk first. Zarx can absorb and discharge strong electrical currents, as well as control neighboring electrical devices and fields. Zarx becomes bigger and stronger in proportion to how much power it absorbs. It thrives by consuming any electrical energy that's accessible, even that from human brains. It burns the body and gains intelligence when it takes in the energy from the human brain. This is something it enjoys doing and does it whenever it can. Although it occasionally possesses the power to control the Hulk, it doesn't appear to be able to take the energy from his brain. When it engages the Hulk in battle, it absorbs its energy to enlarge itself, which it subsequently utilizes to its advantage. Archon, a nobleman by birth, rose to prominence on Polymarchus of his military prowess and abilities. Archon became the Imperial leader after being the strongest warrior on his world. When he initially arrived on Earth in the year 616, he believed that destroying Earth would be the only way to rescue his planet's energy rings, which provided light for his world. Archon has engaged in combat and formed allies with the X-Men, Fantastic Four, and Avengers. Archon was wed to Thundra, a different form of the Femizon governess. Archon has a quiver of lightning bolts that may blow things apart, open portals to other realms, and hit a single target with terrible damage. He frequently carries a sword as well as a tiny nuclear bomb that he may use for detonation. The fact that he's exploded one of these nuclear weapons has never been proven. Agamemnon. Valley Halfling was born to a mortal mother 1,000 years ago. His father, the mischievous god of Asgard Loki, apprenticed him there, where he made friends with the ice giant Slingard. Valley eventually got stuck in Hell, the Asgardian realm of the dead, but his sister Hela freed him out of family affection. As a result of Valley's theft of knowledge that infuriated the gods, Loki cursed him with endless youth, and Odin exiled him from Asgard. Many of Valley's offspring on Earth didn't get divine blessings. Valley told his offspring Prometheus to capture the Hulk for an unknown cause. If Prometheus failed, Valley was advised to use the Hulk to improve the Pantheon. The Hulk then consented to be taken prisoner by the Pantheon to learn more about them and decided to join after hearing Valley's plans to better humanity's future. While Valley didn't command his recruitment, she did instruct Ulysses and Achilles to protect the speedy Thunderbolt or Louis Barrett from the unscrupulous millionaire Justin Hammer's influence. Valley dispatched Achilles to assassinate Max Mir, son of the Dreyberg envoy, after Delphi had a vision of him becoming the next Hitler. However, Valley also sent Hulk to stop Achilles to put both of them to the test. Max almost made it out alive, but his young psychic buddy Greta Rabin secretly vowed to turn Max into becoming a powerful figure in the future. Valley ordered Delphi to look into the Monstrous Drakis based on a message sent from Valley 500 years in the future, which is reality 9218, luring him to the present through Delphi's mystic pool. Once there, the Pantheon banished Drakis into open space, sparing millions of people from Drakis' destruction, including the overthrow of sociopath Farnok Sawala Dan's government in Trans-Sabal, and then Valley sent Ulysses to assist Paris to recover after the Wild One corrupted him. Valley consented to assist the leader to defend Freehold, a haven for gamma radiation victims in Canada, from Hydra in exchange for the leader allowing him to depart. Due to their long-standing animosity, the leader and Hulk broke their Pantheon pact. Valley thus hired Betty Banner to persuade her husband to return. The Hulk halted Hydra and put a stop to the leader's uncovered intentions when Valley revealed to him that the bargain with the leader was a sham and allowed him to fight him. Then, as a sign of goodwill, Valley showed Hulk his full appearance. Achilles objected, but the Pantheon agreed when he requested Hulk to take charge of it while he was away. Because Valley's descendant Atalanta refused to marry him, the Trojan prince Trauma started a war with the Pantheon while Valley was away. Trauma gave up his claim to Atalanta before unintentionally dying during a fight with the Hulk, but the Pantheon sought Valley out for an explanation after learning of his covert agreement with the Trojans, and Jason sought retaliation against Valley. Valley used a portal he'd hidden at Fenway Park to take himself and his pursuers to Asgard to escape Jason and the Hulk. While Valley looked for Slingard, Hulk engaged in combat with Red Norval, the substitute for Thor. Thor and the Hulk reconciled their differences and brought the Warriors 3 and Pantheon armies together. But Slingard then sent his and Valley's nephew, the monster Horfin, who is said to be the offspring of the Fenris Wolf and a frost giant. Horfin went berserk and devoured Valley and Hulk, sending them to hell. When Vali had the Hulk vow on Betty's life that he would release Vali, Hela agreed to let her brother and the Hulk depart. On Earth, however, the Hulk got around this by having the Pantheon confine him. Despite being in prison, he felt that his children had no right to criticize or challenge him. The Endless Night was called by Vali to capture the Mount. While the Pantheon battled their undead ancestors and Vali escaped, the civilian population was evacuated. Achilles, who allied with Vali, and Betty, who disregarded the Hulk's admonition to stay away from combat, both almost perished in battle. Atalanta pursued Vali, who appeared to perish in a rocket plane explosion that brought to mind the Endless Nights. Vali's descendants moved and established a democratic pantheon when the Mount was destroyed, a lineage of Asgardian frost giants. Vali is unaging, trapped in a teenage form from millennia ago, and he experiences the same issues that teenage boys do, such as hormonal changes and acne. He's superhumanly strong, able to lift 30 tons, and durable. His skin and bones are several times denser than a mortal, but can be injured by powerful explosions. Vali must use other methods to change his appearance because, unlike the majority of his family, he's not a natural shapeshifter. Vali trained in magic, but didn't show any magical prowess until she internalized enchantments from the Book of Thoth, such as levitation and mild demon control. Vali is a brilliant planner who possesses a remarkable brain and can foresee the evolution of societal institutions. He's a skilled hand-to-hand fighter and has taught the art of battle to several of his children. Vali frequently uses holograms to appear everywhere and in any visual situation. For example, as a towering, furious deity, he frequently appears within mirrored surfaces. Holograms are linked to the brainwave patterns of anyone he intends to engage with. He frequently carries firearms loaded with mistletoe bullets, capable of wounding impervious guards, and can transport anywhere in the globe or to any realm associated with any heavenly pantheon through technical or magical means. Additionally, Vali has access to the networks and tools used by the Pantheon's global military. Mainframe. Iron Man developed a game AI called Mainframe. Mainframe developed his own identity and desired to destroy New York City. Iron Man and the agents of Smash had to compete in a roller derby against Mainframe's robots. Following the destruction of Mainframe's robots by Iron Man and the agents of Smash, Mainframe decides against attacking the city. In doing so, Mainframe transforms one of the robots into a new body before setting off to explore the planet. Superhuman strength and jet boosters on Mainframe's artificial body enable him to fly. He has a sophisticated sensor array and several energy weapons like lasers, magnetic beams, electric blasts, etc. He also possesses rockets and grenades, which are projectile weapons. The most priceless possession of Mainframe is a tiny beacon that, in the event of his destruction or irreparable damage, transmits a signal to a Stark Enterprises satellite and downloads his mind into one of the spare bodies kept there. What Mainframe will do is uncertain given the satellite's recent destruction. Madman. The Hulk's adversary Madman is depicted as the leader's brother and one of the Hulk's rivals. Bruce Banner's former classmate Stearns becomes insanely obsessed with Banner's job as the Hulk. To be like his hero, Stern puts himself through a variety of gamma radiation trials. As a result, Stern suffers from multiple personality disorders and transforms into a deformed creature with enormous superhuman power. From this point on, he receives a command to carry out from a much stronger, maybe insane, personality. Stearns, who goes by the alias Madman, devises a plan to murder the Hulk by injecting him with a toxin that quickly worsens his physical condition. With every battle, the Abomination, a member of the Hulk's Rose Gallery, grows weaker and more emaciated, putting the Hulk in conflict with other members of his Rose Gallery. The Hulk receives assistance from Samuel Stearns, the leader and Philip's brother, who aids him in finding Madman and the cure. Madman scares him, he says, but he can't make himself murder his brother. The Hulk manages to heal himself and poison Madman, leaving the latter on the point of death, with the antidote fallen just out of reach. During the subsequent conflict, Madman experiences a psychiatric collapse that fully overwhelms his original nature. Later, Madman admits that he didn't do anything special to get it. He just bulked up to grab it. During that period, he pretended to be a researcher for the Red Skull's New World Order organization. Here, he assisted in creating the power-mimicking monster known as Piecemeal out of a kidnapped S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, and placed a safety override that made it only responsible to himself. In the area of Loch Ness, where he'd been chasing the beast, he came across it fighting the Hulk and defeated him from behind. When the Hulk takes longer than planned to escape after being thrown into the lake while carrying iron weights, he's dissatisfied. Madman keeps yelling chaotic, insane things throughout the gang-up that follows. Madman murders Perseus indifferently when the retired Pantheon member he was visiting, Perseus, attempts to step in, but the Hulk pushes him away. Piecemeal seems to be killed by the Hulk as Madman chooses to take off in a stolen plane. When the Hulk overtakes and begins to disassemble the jet, Madman detonates the aircraft using a pilot's chair parachute while joking that he isn't interested in killing the Hulk, because it would be boring to no longer irritate him. He promptly takes the British Prince Charles prisoner on top of Buckingham Palace after arriving in London, where the two superhumans known as Killpower and Motormouth are residing, and wants to be crowned King of England. The Hulk saves the day. In a matter of seconds, the madman transforms from wailing to irreverently happy, dumping the prince onto the earth. He claims that the latter should grasp the need to use tremendous force. After being shoved back by Motormouth, Madman manages to knock him down as the Hulk closes in on him while he's having a temper tantrum over everyone ganging up on him. Once more, Madman expresses his love and adoration for the Hulk and Banner, but seizes the chance to flee as the London Bridge comes tumbling down around them. Madman reappears as part of the Marvel Now event and is spotted delivering gamma technology on the island of Cartagena. The Thunderbolts, as represented by Red Hulk, come between him and them. MODOK. George Tarleton had mediocre intelligence before being transformed into MODOK via advanced idea mechanics. Tarleton focused on tests to release the mental potential for AIM. While some reports claim he was coerced, others claim he was a volunteer. Tarleton was the next experiment in either case. He was to be known as MODOK, or Mental Organism Designed Only for Computing, after the metamorphosis. He took control of AIM very rapidly and took over as their leader, earning the moniker MODOK, Mental Organism Designed Only for Killing. He's fought against Captain America, S.H.I.E.L.D., Iron Man, Hulk, the Avengers, and Namor in his capacity as commander of AIM. He belongs to the Intelligentsia as well. Intelligentia's MODOK division also contributed to the development of the Red Hulk by employing cosmic and gamma radiations. He joined forces with a gang of the world's brightest villains, including the Leader, the Wizard, the Mad Thinker, the Red Ghost, and Dr. Doom, in a covert plot to completely and irrevocably destroy their foes, notably the Hulk. After gaining ancient writings and spells, Doom turned against the gang, leaving MODOK and the Leader in control. They planned to catch the remaining 6 of the 8 brightest individuals on Earth and were in charge of capturing Reed Richards and Dr. Doom. The idea was to learn whatever they can from them and apply it to themselves, leaving the mindless husks up to the wizard's whims. Soon after, MODOK and Leader utilize a cathexis ray to turn themselves into hulked-out copies of all the heroes and their army, the AIM Marines. Amadeus Cho, one of the heroes, contracts the infection and can distort reality within a 10-foot radius, making him the world's smartest man. Then he transforms MODOK back into George Tarleton, using his ability to bend reality, and Tarleton flees. George Tarleton undergoes a mutagenic procedure that endows him with superhuman intellect, including a computer-like memory, the capacity to search and remember enormous databanks of knowledge extremely fast, and the ability to answer abstract mathematical problems almost instantly. The mathematical chance of any given event occurring may also be calculated by him. This is another talent that almost qualifies as precognition. He still has ordinary human ingenuity, though. The figure known as MODOK also possesses telepathic abilities that allow him to mentally command both small and large numbers of people, as well as create force barriers resistant to small nuclear explosions. MODOK wears a headband that allows him to concentrate his mental energy and turn it into a lethal beam, thanks to AIM technology. Tarleton's head has become so big as a result of the mutation that his body can no longer sustain its weight of it, necessitating the employment of an exoskeleton and hover chair. The chair is armed with several different weaponry, such as lasers and missiles. On rare occasions, Tarleton may utilize a massive, proportionately large humanoid vehicle. Additionally, Tarleton's organs degrade swiftly, requiring the usage of collected clones whose organs are utilized to keep him alive. MODOK has access to cutting-edge technology and a personal army as the head of AIM. Glenn Talbot. The former military commander turned bioscience CEO, Glenn Talbot, works for a business that also happens to be a politically significant Defense Department contractor. He was an officer under the command of General Ross when Betty Ross first met him while she was a college student. The ambitious, demanding, and obsessive Talbot targets Betty and Bruce's lab for a hostile takeover if they continue to reject his offers to leave the lab and work for his company. Later in the movie, he becomes adamant about obtaining a tissue sample of the Hulk for potential military super soldier uses. His attempts to intimidate Banner throughout the movie almost always results in the Hulk beating him up. Talbot convinces the NSA to give him control of the situation after Thunderbolt Ross takes Bruce to a covert subterranean base so he may experiment on Banner. Talbot starts the tissue extracting procedure after including a transition, but it's unsuccessful since the Hulk escapes because his skin is too robust, even in the early phases of morphing. Talbot's experiments are stopped, and Ross issues an order for the whole subterranean detention facility to be evacuated. Ross is disregarded by Talbot, who then issues the lockdown order. After his men have rendered the Hulk immobile with containment foam, Talbot attempts to extract a sample of the Hulk himself. However, when the Hulk enlarges the area of his eye where Talbot was aiming, Talbot trembles in fear and is knocked to the ground by the Hulk slowly but surely emerging from the foam. Talbot makes the mistake of firing an M2 explosive cartridge at the Hulk. The bullet ricochets off the Hulk's unbreakable skin and strikes Talbot, killing him. Talbot has frequently demonstrated his military experience in hand-to-hand fighting, using guns, and is in virtually excellent health. Rhino. Rhino is a bad guy that frequently battles the Hulk. His talents include more strength than a human and a defense suit that can fend off various assaults. Along with an indestructible horn to complement the Rhino theme, the costume is also available. The Rhino's horn may be employed in a variety of ways to defeat adversaries, but its more useful abilities are sometimes overlooked. The Rhino was created by accident. Despite being by accident, the Rhino leveraged his newfound abilities for financial gain. Due to his thefts, Spider-Man met him with his webbed anger. Later, the Rhino joins forces with Abomination, a former Hulk rival. The two partners are finally knocked unconscious by the Hulk, and ever since, the Rhino has been a member of the Hulk's rogue gallery. Rhino has always been portrayed as a villain who was decent at heart but wound up on the wrong side of the law as a result of the poor decisions he made in life. He's also always had a dim-witted and rather upbeat disposition. However, there came a moment when Rhino made the correct choice, which, regrettably, was the choice that would permanently alter him. Rhino's wife died, which caused him to become even more vicious and insane. His main objective is to cause agony to as many people as he can. The Rhino is the toughest member of Spider-Man's band of miscreants. He was initially classified at 20 tons level, yet even at this point, he was capable of briefly facing up against the Hulk. Before receiving his most recent amp, he was generally regarded as being as strong as the Thing or She-Hulk, though his lack of fighting prowess and low intelligence means that he's nowhere near as formidable as them. He's received several strength enhancements over the years via additional gamma radiation treatment. He's used his strength to punch Nova into orbit, dominate Thunderstrike in combat, and hold Rhino for a very little period before he passed out from smoke inhalation. He's also faced up against the Hulk multiple times, though his performance against the Green Goliath has declined with time. At his finest though, while Leader owned the Rhino's body, he engaged the Hulk in a lengthy battle. Although it's crucial to mention that Rhino recently received an amp, it's reasonable to assume that he's now much stronger than he was before. Even Spider-Man, who's trained to take on the whole Sinister Six gang, was unable to move Rhino, even though Rhino can be harmed by Spider-Man's punches. Despite its size, the Rhino can run up to 90 miles per hour, albeit it is hard for him to change directions once he's moving at peak speed. In comparison to a typical person, the Rhino's strength and muscles are substantially more effective and produce significantly fewer fatigue-inducing chemicals. When he's at his best, he can work out for up to 24 hours without becoming impaired by the accumulation of tiredness toxins in his blood. The Rhino's physique is extremely resilient to physical harm, even without his armor. He's unaffected by high-caliber bullets, exposure to intense heat or cold, falling from heights, and even light anti-tank weapons. The Rhino has a great level of resilience to physical harm because of his outfit. It's very resistant to damage and can withstand shockwaves from tiny anti-tank weapons, explosions the size of a ton of TNT, and temperature fluctuations between -50 and 1000 degrees Fahrenheit without melting or breaking. It can be removed and it's resistant to acid. The armor increases his strength and has 2 horns that can pierce 2-inch plates of steel, as well as a bulletproof polymer mat that resembles a rhinoceros's hide. Except for his face, the figure is covered in a thick polymer mat suit that resembles rhinoceros skin. The outfit has a horn and is also quite resilient to damage and harsh temperatures. The character gains superhuman strength, enhanced levels of speed and stamina, and a high degree of endurance through mutagenic chemical and radiation treatments, including gamma-ray bombardment. The second Rhino is covered in high-tech armor and carries a war axe with horn-like blades. Supreme Intelligence. The finest Kree brains in history have come together to form the Kree Supreme Intelligence. A peace agreement between the Kree and the Shi'ar that called for the Guardians of the Galaxy to deliver them the Orb of Truth was being discussed by the Supreme Intelligence and Lalandra Naramani. The peace agreement between the Kree and the Shi'ar is successful when the Collector is defeated by the Agents of Smash and the Guardians of the Galaxy, and delivers to them the Orb of Truth. In Planet Monster 1, in punishment for Ronan the Accuser's imprisonment, the Supreme Intelligence commands the Kree Armada to invade Earth. After Ronan the Accuser and Leader have been freed by Kree warriors, they're taken before the Supreme Intelligence, who absorbs Leader's information. The Supreme Intelligence starts to take in all of the information on Earth as the Kree, Avengers and Agents of Smash battle it out. The upshot of Hulk throwing himself in front of the knowledge absorption apparatus is that he's absorbed by the Supreme Intelligence. In Planet Monster 2, to release Hulk from Supreme Intelligence and save the annihilation of Earth and the universe, the Avengers cooperate. The Kree Supreme Intelligence is an enormous cybernetic organic computer system made up of 5,000 cubic meters of computer circuitry that includes the cryogenically preserved disembodied brains of the greatest leaders and thinkers in Kree history. A single collective intellect is produced by this gathering of minds, and it can make innovative use of the computer system's enormous information storage and processing power. The Kree address it at its terminal room, where a holographic picture is displayed on a massive monitor screen to communicate with it. The Supreme Intelligence has a limitless intelligence and tremendous knowledge that is much beyond that of modern Earth. It can access all of the Kree Empire's resources and has information storage and processing capabilities that are much above those of the human brain. The intelligence has all known psionic abilities, including telepathy, future prediction, telekinesis, cosmic awareness, sensory connection, information absorption, post-cognition, precognition, etc., while being stationary and essentially immovable. Gargoyle. The first antagonist of the Hulk was a Soviet scientist named Yuri Topolov. He transformed into a large-headed dwarf in a Russian missile facility where he had worked with radiation. Despite having a disfigured physique, he had a genius-level intelligence thanks to mental enhancement. Igor Drenkov, a Soviet spy, was brought to the United States by Topolov on behalf of the Kremlin to collect the Gamma bomb's trade secrets. Despite being imprisoned, Igor was able to send a message to the Gargoyle alerting him that the Americans' gamma radiation experiments gave rise to the hideous creature known as the Hulk. The Hulk then became Topolov's obsession, and he decided to either kill him or bring him back to Russia as a representation of his dominance. The Gargoyle traveled to the United States aboard a rocket-firing submarine and entered the American military base covertly. The Gargoyle shot him with a weapon intended to break an opponent's will as he ran into the Hulk and Rick Jones. He transported Rick Jones and the comatose Hulk back to Russia, but when they got there, he found that the Hulk had changed back into Dr. Robert Bruce Banner, the human version of himself. The Gargoyle was devastated by this transformation because all that it wanted was to appear human. While the therapy would also cause Gargoyle to lose his increased intelligence, Banner assured him that he was experienced with situations much like his and could heal his deformities. Topolov received treatment from Banner, who was able to cure him of his illness. Topolov was so appreciative that he turned against the Soviets and, by bombing the military installation where he worked, was able to kill numerous Soviet generals and die like a man. He did, however, give his disfigurement to his son, Gremlin. Grey Gargoyle. A chemical accident grants Paul-Pierre Duval, a French chemist, the power to touch any living thing and cause it to turn to stone. Duval transforms his body into stone, dons a mask and cape, and assumes the identity of the Grey Gargoyle, a criminal. But when Duval grows bored, he resolves to challenge the thunder god Thor and take his legendary hammer Mjolnir to become eternal. Thor is transformed to stone during their initial conflict, but after falling and hitting the ground with his hammer, he changes back to Donald Blake. As Blake, he lures the Gargoyle into the Hudson River in New York City with a projection of Thor, where he's buried at the bottom. This destroys the enemy. After being dragged out from the river, the Grey Gargoyle ultimately returns and turns to stone when two people are inspecting him. The Grey Gargoyle sets out for Donald Blake, a physician who has recently had Thor's strength taken away, in the belief that Blake can lead him to Thor. He stalks Blake around the streets, growing enraged that Blake managed to get away from him before choosing to kill Blake. He's however delayed when an Asgardian uses a light-emitting arrow to blind him, at which point the Asgardian restores the Thunder God's strength. Thor incapacitates the Grey Gargoyle once again, as he uses his hammer to imprison it by using a lamppost as a power source and sending a bolt that welds the Gargoyle's limbs together. Then, Odin gives Thor his entire power back. Paul Duval accidentally spilt an unknown organic chemical substance on his right hand during an experiment, triggering a mutagenic response that turned the hand into a living stone. As a result, Duval may use his stone hand to transform every living thing he touches into solid stone, with the impact lasting for around an hour. Duval may also utilize the effect to change into a living stone entity with extraordinary strength and durability that can carry about 20 tons without losing any movement. Duval is a skilled scientist as well. Dracula. The world's most potent vampire is Count Vlad Dracula. He wasn't the first of his type, but he's regarded as the supreme vampire. As Dracula's train approaches Hulk and Leader in 1890 during the Victorian era, Leader prepares to join up with him. Hulk follows Leader to London. As Dracula unleashes his vampires on him, he even believed that Hulk was another of Dr. Frankenstein's inventions. In exchange for giving him a means of protecting him from the sun, the Leader persuades Dracula not to bite him. Hulk learns via Frankenstein's monster that Dracula has captured werewolf by Encantu, the living mummy who refuses to serve Dracula and Knight's grandpa. Leader develops the Gamma Furnace, which would cover the Earth in a layer of gamma smoke so dense that it would block out all sunlight and foster the kind of darkness that Dracula needs to survive. Dracula hypnotizes Leader into turning on the Gamma Furnace when the Hulk, Frankenstein's monster, Werewolf by Night's grandpa, and Nkantu show up. After the Hulk destroys Dracula's train, Leader turns it into a Gamma Furnace and creates a strain of the vampire that only affects gamma-powered characters. The transformation of Hulk into a vampire results in a future in which vampires have conquered the globe using their Gamma Furnace, and that Vampire Hulk has already defeated Dracula and Leader. Dracula is thrown into the sunlight, leading him to vanish there to avoid being defeated, and Leader to flee to the next time period as the vampire-dominated present is rewritten when Hulk destroys the virus by performing a thunderclap toward the sky. The majority of vampires pale in comparison to Dracula's abilities. In addition to having superhuman strength, he also has superhuman speed, endurance, reflexes, and transvection. He's resistant to age, typical illness, disease, and the majority of wounds. By traditional means, he can't be killed or seriously hurt. Most attacks have little effect on him, and thanks to his healing factor, he can repair damaged tissue quickly. Dracula has the power to control people's thoughts as well as creatures like wolves, bats, and rats. He has some limited authority over other vampires. He can briefly captivate anybody with his sight and has the power to mentally manipulate victims he's bit. He has the power to shapeshift while maintaining his intelligence into a bat of normal or human size, a wolf, a fog or mist, or both. He can also affect the weather, such as by calling on electrical storms. Dracula is an expert swordsman and hand-to-hand fighter with decades of expertise, specializing in the tactics and warfare of the 15th century. He was tutored as a young man in Transylvania and has a brilliant mind. Kree. The experimentation on primitive man by the Kree led to the development of the Inhumans. The Kree were compelled to evolve into the rule by the Supreme Intelligence. The rule were the primary proponents of strict security. The Kotati, a race of humanoids that resemble plants, and the Kree were formerly a primitive species that coexisted on the planet Hala. The Skrulls, a benign species at the time, visited their planet. One of their species would be chosen to represent their planet in an intergalactic council. They informed the Kree and the Kotati. They dispatched the Kree and the Kotati to our moon and instructed them to each establish a city there to decide whose race it would be. The planet would be represented by the species that constructed the finest one. While the Kotati slept, the Kree toiled away at creating a metropolis which is now the blue region of the moon. The Kotati had developed a sizable garden while they were dozing off, the Skrulls discovered when they returned to the moon to select a winner. The Kotati took home the prize. The enraged Kree massacred every Kotati and Skrull that came to their world. The Kree-Skrull Wars were subsequently launched by using the Skrull spacecraft to travel to the Skrulls' home planet. Despite the Kree's consideration, the Skrulls initiated the Second Kree-Skrull War. One of 5 individuals claiming to represent the Skrull Empire, Kylor, headed the Skrulls. They decided to launch an attack first after capturing a Kree spy on one of their worlds. Nanora became Supreme Leader after the Supreme Intelligence went insane. Despite being a Skrull in secret, Nanora chose to stay a Kree and reign over everyone. She turned against Kylor and her community. Empress Sybil took over the Skrull War following Kylor's demise. When Sybil returned Nanora's shape-shifting abilities, Nanora was vanquished. The Kree were informed by Sybil that their commander was a Skrull and that she had won the conflict. However, Sybil proclaimed a truce. The highest-ranked member on hand, Tuskat, refused to accept peace since it went against everything the Kree stood for. The ceasefire was the most he could offer, and she agreed to it. The Supreme Intelligence and Nanora's death left the Kree without a leader. The Contemplator used deception to turn the pirate Clumsy Fowl up into the Emperor. The assassins Eodan and Dar-Ben killed the Emperor. One of them had blue skin, the other pink, and together they controlled the Empire. The Kree immediately accused the Skrulls of this unidentified attack after Thanos decimated half of the cosmos with the Infinity Gauntlet and got ready for battle. Lilandra appoints Deathbird as regent after the Shi'ar triumph thanks to the explosion of a Nago bomb above their crown world. The rule was created as a result of the Supreme Intelligence orchestrating the whole Kree-Shi'ar war to break the Kree race out of their evolutionary rut. This would subsequently be used by the Supreme Intelligence during the events of maximum security. The Kree have a bigger growth in physical attributes than the normal adult Homo sapiens since they have acclimated to a stronger gravity than Earthlings and are able to raise a weight of between 1 and 1.2 metric tons. Even by Kree standards, Marvell was thought to be swift. His degree of speed would be considered exceptional for a human. Comparatively speaking, Kree body fibers are superior to the best mammalian specimen. Under ideal circumstances, they can exert more force for a longer period. The average Kree is considerably tougher than the average Homo sapien, having greater resistance to pressure, impact, and temperature fluctuations. A skilled Kree soldier can avoid being shot at even at point-blank range from numerous gunmen at once, since their responses are thought to be superior to those of the best human athletes. The Kree are more flexible physically than many other species and are able to instantly jump and bound at tremendous heights. The Kree females frequently undergo biophysical stunting surgery in order to identify and eliminate the psychic potential that is exclusive to their gender. The Kree have uncastrated women who are capable of clairvoyance, precognition, and pheromonal and biophysical siphoning powers that can have fatal consequences, such as controlling the opposing sex's desires or entirely draining their life force, can vary from dominating the other sex to having lethal effects.
You can call us the Agents of Crash.
Crash is a group put together by the leader as part of his grand scheme to wipe out the Smash agents. He assembles a group of their most lethal adversaries, including the Abomination, Absorbing Man, Titania, Blastar, and Sauron. Each member was given a stealth belt that could only be seen by creatures with the Gamma power, such as the Agents of Smash. To prevent their destruction during the conflict, he also constructed the belts out of adamantium. To make their failure more impactful, he waited to deploy them after the Agents of Smash had achieved their objective of being revered as heroes. That day follows the collaboration between the Fantastic Four and the Agents of Smash in stopping the Tributites. The leader spoke with Hulk in his cell while the rest of the gang was gone, but he tricked Hulk into thinking he'd fled by appearing as a hologram. The leader informed Hulk that he put 5 gamma bombs in Vista Verde, which would detonate in 13 minutes after Hulk broke through his cell wall. The leader was discovered to be still in his cell after the Hulk left, having fled through the wall of his damaged cell. The Hulk then phoned his crew to let them know what had happened. When Hulk arrived at Vista Verde, he startled the nearby residents and instructed his crew to look for the bombs. Crash assaulted them, and the two teams fought each other. Collateral damage from the conflict was extensive, and because Crash employed their belts, the public only witnessed the Hulks wreaking havoc on the metropolis. In the end, the Agents of Smash vanquished their adversaries, although Vista Verde was destroyed as a result. The Hulk discovered a transmitter within his statue where the leader revealed that the 5 gamma bombs that devastated Vista Verde were actually them after the leader had duped them. The Agents of Smash tried to show the military the comatose Crash members when they came, but they were unable to see them, causing them to escape and being blamed by the rest of the world for destroying the one city that had ever loved them. The members of Crash were the leader, Emil Blonsky, or the Abomination, Absorbing Man, Loki, Sauron, Blastar, and Titania. Flux. Benjamin Tibbets was a private first class in the American Army and had unresolved mother issues. General Riker subjected him to a gamma bomb together with a company of troops to study the effects on people. Only Tibbets managed to escape. He was changed into a superhumanly strong, Hulk-like beast. The only distinctions were that Flux's metamorphosis was more regular, with certain portions of him occasionally changing while the rest of him stayed human, and that he was more deformed, with his forehead and joints appearing noticeably more prominent. Flux was sent for the Hulk after being persuaded by General Riker that Banner was to blame for his condition and had sold gamma technology to the Iraqis, but the confrontation turned out to be one-sided, and Banner was able to reason with him. Thanks to Doc Samson, Benjamin Tibbets received a mental examination, but Riker later recaptured him and broke him. When General Ross ordered Riker to stand down, the conflict between Flux and the Hulk ended. Flux had regressed to a child's mindset and vocabulary. Without Riker's orders, Flux gave up fighting and became distraught, turning back into Benny and sobbing about his issues with his mother. Flux was recently discovered to be under the care of AIM, who subjected him to experiments. However, during a raid expedition on the AIM base, Gray of the Gamma Corps murdered him. Flux possesses tremendous strength since he's a gamma monster, yet his strength increases as his anger increases. Ymir. The strongest frost giant is Ymir. He's in charge of Niflheim. Since Surtur is the only entity in the Norse cosmology older than him, he's so old that he predates all of the gods. In Hulks on Ice, as part of the Frost Giant's plan to impose an interminable winter on Earth, Laufey frees Ymir from his confinement inside an ice volcano on Earth. Then, when Thor and the Agents of Smash attempt to vanquish Ymir, Ymir assaults them. Scar was frozen by Ymir as he tried to repeatedly stab him, and Ymir was caught by the A-bomb before Scar could touch the ground. The Hulk is informed by Thor that they must identify Ymir's weak point. Scar's sword is still in Ymir as the Hulks strike the vulnerable area. She-Hulk moves both of them out of the path in time for Ymir to drop the A-bomb. Thor devises a scheme in which he and the Hulk assault Red Hulk for long enough to heat him, then toss him in Ymir's direction, which breaks Ymir. After that, Thor unleashes his thunderbolt, shattering Ymir as Laufey flees back to Jotunheim. The enormous ice giant Ymir is over 1,000 feet, 300 meters, tall, and is stronger and more durable than the majority of other giants. One of the rare creatures whose strength enables him to stop fighting Surtur and Odin is Ymir. The persona may regenerate from as little as a single ice particle and create powerful, lethal cold blasts. In addition, Ymir carries a sizable icicle that serves as a club. The protagonist is a long-ago entity who only cares about wreaking havoc. Devil Hulk. When Bruce was a small boy and being beaten by his father, Brian Banner, Devil Hulk was initially conceived. He yearned for a father figure to care for him and provide for him. While reading Paradise Lost, he came upon a drawing of the snake giving Eve an apple. Bruce later developed the Devil Hulk for solace, but he subconsciously associated every father figure with evil or dread because of Brian's abuse. Several years after Bruce's exposure to the Gamma Bomb, Devil Hulk would be let free. He temporarily seized control and ordered Bruce to change at night. Soon after, Bruce locked the Devil Hulk away. Because of Bruce's dread of and mistrust of father figures, he mistook the Devil Hulk for a malevolent creature and misinterpreted everything the Devil Hulk said to him in their shared mental space. Later on, Devil Hulk would take over Bruce's computer and attempt to assist Bruce in controlling his other alters. Bruce created Devil Hulk as a protector alter and as a fictional father figure to care for and love him. As a result, the Demon Hulk is deeply concerned for Bruce and his well-being, while also being incredibly aggressive and spiteful towards anybody who harms or attempts to harm Bruce. Devil Hulk has a sympathetic heart for kids as seen by the cruel punishment he meted out to a convenience store thief who killed a 12-year-old girl. He also fiercely guards Savage Hulk, who stands in for Bruce as the lonely, hurt child. If the Savage Hulk represents Bruce Banner's inner wrath, the Devil Hulk represents Banner's inner wickedness. The Devil Hulk is far darker and more malevolent than the typical Hulk manifestation. Setting the Devil Hulk loose might lead to the destruction or death of everything Bruce Banner knew and loved, since he is a shadowy representation of the Hulk's real, terrible power. His initial powers are identical to those of the Hulk, making him a mirror image of the Hulk in terms of strength, endurance, agility, and healing potential. His abilities are indeed enhanced, but this evil being differed from the Hulk in that the Devil Hulk is not just bigger and perhaps even stronger than Savage Hulk, but he also has the same level of intelligence. This proves that the Devil Hulk has both intelligence and muscle. When Bruce discovers Devil Hulk tied up, he pledges to rescue him in exchange for helping the other Hulks and take Hulk Robot. Dr. Timothy Ryan deemed the Hulk robot to be unsafe and forbade Rusty and Arthur from using it as the mascot for their school's all-star game at the Maryland Institute of Technology. When the Olympian Eternals left the Unimind, they released cosmic forces that gave life to the object. The energies enhanced the Hulk robot's strength to match the Hulk and gave it intelligence. It escaped the laboratory and started on the rampage. 3 Eternals were summoned when the National Guard failed to stop the Hulk robot: Icarus, Makari, and Circe. Until Zorus entered the battle, both the National Guard and the Eternals were losing. It was rendered inert when it charged Zorus because cosmic energy seeped from it. Later, Dr. Doom discovered the Hulk robot and rebuilt it to work for him. After eliminating the Grey Hulk, he dispatched it to battle the Thing, who mistook it for the actual Hulk. The Thing tore it apart when he realized it wasn't the real Hulk in the middle of the fight. Dr. Doom handed Jester 2 the Hulk's robot's pieces for the acts of vengeance, and Jester reassembled the robot as a member of the Assembly of Evil with the addition of amusing weaponry to its armory. The Hulk robot assaulted She-Hulk during the Avengers press conference and had her on the run until Wasp destroyed the Jester's remote control and sent the Hulk robot adrift. She-Hulk smashed it by hurling it into a Fenris energy explosion. The leader and the other Intelligentsia members were able to acquire the Hulk robot during the fall of the Hulk's narrative. When Scar strikes, the leader uses it to attack former member Dr. Doom. When Bruce Banner arrived, Dr. Doom succumbed to the poison pill of the Hulk robot. The Hulk robot was then used by the leader to remove Dr. Doom. Later, the Hulk robot assisted MODOK and the Mad Thinker's Gamma Droid in controlling Red Hulk. After that, Red Hulk drains the Hulk robot's gamma energy.
Language of this new dimension, which I shall conquer and plunder.
Blastar. According to Reed Richards' chart of the planet Balur in Sector 56D's negative zone, Blastar is a member of the extraterrestrial species known as the Balurians. He governed the Balurians as their brutal emperor until his subjects rose in rebellion and overthrew him. Blastar lost his position as king and turned into an outlaw in the negative zone. Blastar was imprisoned in a unique containment suit and left to float aimlessly in the negative zone of space. When he emerged from the negative zone, Reed Richards, who had also been imprisoned there, accompanied Triton back to Earth. He engaged in combat with the Sandman and Reed Richards' Fantastic Four superhero team, but Mr. Fantastic forced him back into the negative zone. In the years that followed, Blastar would frequently visit Earth to conquer it and engage in several battles with the Fantastic Four, the Avengers, Thor, and other superheroes. At one time, Blastar fell into a coma, but Professor Paxton Pentecost was able to wake him up, and Blastar later agreed to serve Pentecost. The Human Torch and the Hulk had to fight Blastar. He was overpowered, captured in adamantium, and submerged in the Atlantic. Later, Blastar was released from his adamantium cage and engaged in combat with the Inhumans. Later on, Annihilus, another conqueror residing in the negative zone, and Blastar formed their first alliance. Blastar attempted to usurp Balur's kingdom by using the Super Adaptoid. His wife Niglar resisted him and called in the Avengers and the Thing to stop Blastar and his friends. Later, only Annihilus stood in Blastar's way as he began to rule Negative Zone and reclaim the throne of Balur. Reed Richards was taken prisoner while Blastar commanded a fleet of battleships to assault Earth. To stop the Fantastic Four from impeding his takeover of Earth, Blastar released Annihilus. Annihilus and Blastar, however, engaged in combat. Tanjar, Blastar's henchman, betrayed him, leaving Blastar incapacitated. Later, the Eternals found Blastar in the Negative Zone. He toppled the Eternals, but was ultimately vanquished by the Avengers and returned to the Eternals' captivity. Although Annihilus and Blastar occasionally work together, they're typically bitter rivals. Burstar, Blastar's son, has assisted his father, but he also has his own goals and has aligned with the Kree. Blastar is very resilient to harm and possesses superhuman strength and endurance. He was immune to the effects of conventional weaponry and even ballistic missiles. His superhuman body can tolerate tremendous changes in pressure and temperature. He practically works non-stop. He can induce himself into a condition of hibernation, which allows him to survive in space without food for several weeks. He can fly alone at escape velocity. He's capable of launching bursts of very concussive kinetic power. He can also use the same concussive force to give himself flight by shooting through the air like a rocket, and he can nearly always sustain this push. His energy blast can momentarily compromise the Eternals' molecular stability. The sophisticated technology from his home planet, including starships and potent plasma-based weaponry, is also available to him. He's also received extensive training in the martial arts of and by his people, but most of the time, he merely employs his natural abilities. Null, the living darkness. An impossible, benevolent, and now extinct angelic species known as the Seraph that once inhabited the Earth's moon gave rise to Null, a demonic monster. When it became fully cognizant, it took control of Christiansboro, Virginia, until the gargoyle chased it away. Then it took over Adam Henderson's body and used him as a pawn until being vanquished once more, this time by the Ghost Rider. The Control Mind helped Null take over the United States on Earth 712, but the Defenders and the Squadron Supreme eventually drove Null away and appeared to have destroyed it. Null's developed form was solid yet incredibly resilient and powerful. With the use of its magic, Null can jump between dimensions, manipulate items telekinetically, converse telepathically, shrink humans, project concussive psychokinetic blasts, reanimate corpses, and possess others. It can also shapeshift and throw illusions. Ronan the Accuser. The Kree Empire's nobility, a select number of Kree who can trace their roots to the ancient Kree tribes on their native planet Hala, included Ronan the Accuser. Ronan joins the Kree Public Accuser Corps after completing his official studies. Since Ronan takes to his training well, he receives promotions frequently. Finally, he prevents a fleet of Skrull ships from entering Kree airspace during an incident on the Kree border. As a result, he's appointed the Kree Emperor's Supreme Accuser, who is in charge of upholding the Supreme Intelligence's rules and regulations. The Hulks find the leader stowed away on the ship while searching for a way back to Earth. To save an old enemy, Ego, the Living Planet, the Agents of Smash must battle Ronan the Accuser and his Kree warriors. However, the Agents of Smash must put themselves in danger to rescue the lives of their two adversaries when Galactus approaches Ego, the Living Planet. The Hulks were informed by Ronan that they had a global bounty on their heads for saving Galactus' life. In Druff is Enough, the team's one chance to return to Earth at the moment when Ronan the Accuser targets the Agents of Smash is placed in danger when A-Bomb introduces an alien called Druffs to the ship and it begins to take control. On Banner Day, the Hulk permits Bruce Banner to reappear with Betty Ross's assistance. Ronan the Accuser then launches a Kree attack on Earth, which causes Bruce Banner to second-guess his choice. In Planet Monster Part 1, in punishment for Ronan the Accuser's imprisonment, the Supreme Intelligence commands the Kree Armada to invade Earth. After Ronan the Accuser and leader have been freed by Kree warriors, they're taken before the Supreme Intelligence, who absorbs leader's information. The Supreme Intelligence starts to take in all of the information on Earth as the Kree, Avengers, and Agents of Smash battle it out. The upshot of Hulk throwing himself in front of the knowledge absorption apparatus is that he's absorbed by the Supreme Intelligence. In Planet Monster Part 2, Ronan and the Supreme Intelligence started their assault on Earth. After the Avengers and Agents of Smash eventually destroyed his entire fleet and spacecraft, he teleported to the mothership to inform the Supreme Intelligence of his failure, who then intervened on his behalf. Their attempts were in vain, since the Earth's heroes, with Ego the Living Planet's assistance, destroyed the mothership and sent it hurtling into space. The defective spacecraft detonated safely away from Earth, killing them both and putting an end to the menace of the Kree Empire, with Ronan and the Supreme Intelligence within. In the end, Ronan proved to be a very nasty and evil extraterrestrial. He's the ruler of the Kree Empire and has a very perverted sense of honor, believing it was acceptable to attach a bomb to Ego the Living Planet that would kill Galactus but not harm him. In addition, he was cruel, insane, sadistic, narcissistic, and hypocritical. He considers himself to be incredibly strong, to the extent that he believed that murdering Hulk and his agents of Smash as retaliation was just justice. When Ronan truly deceived the agents into believing that Ego's death was beneficial to the universe, when he was just doing it to eliminate another entity, he hunted out the Hulks and set a reward on their heads since he believed they had lied to him. Ronan lacked any morals and humanity, and he was prepared to wipe out the whole human population of the Earth, only to get even with the Hulk. Even though the odds were not in his team's favor, his charm allowed him to inspire the other Kree troops to join him in any battle. Ronan was also able to persuade the agents of Smash into joining his troops in an attack on Ego the Living Planet, though they presumably would have fought him anyhow, given that Ego had attempted to destroy Earth. The Supreme Intelligence, the real ruler of the Kree Empire, was likewise extremely devoted to Ronan until the very end. This was true even after the latter's terrible attacks on it. Due to his Kree heritage and physical fitness, Ronan possesses greater strength, endurance, and speed than the average person. He also heals more quickly, in addition to having a tactical mind, enhanced combat abilities and heightened knowledge, and the capacity to adapt to various circumstances. Ronan is a public accuser. When without wearing his armor, Ronan can generally lift or push around 10 tons and about 80 tons. Normally, Ronan is covered in a suit of cybernetic armor that both protects him and improves all of his inherent talents. His armor has scanners, a camouflage mechanism, an electric charge generator, and the ability to freeze enemies. Ronan can also launch strong blasts from his eyes because of his ability. Wrecking Crew. A gang of outlaws known as the Wrecking Crew was endowed with divine abilities. They're occasionally Thor's enemies. Wrecker, Bulldozer, Piledriver, Thunderball, and Titania make up the team. In the Scar Whisperer, they aid Titania and Absorbing Man in inciting a disturbance at the Vault. The agents of Smash defeat the Wrecking Crew. In the Big Green Mile, the Wrecking Crew are depicted as inmates of the Vault area, which is under Abomination's control. The Wrecking Crew are seen with Titania and Absorbing Man as they're being transported to a different jail facility after the agents of Smash successfully stop Abomination's purge of their portion of the Vault.
No one challenges Sauron and lives!
Sauron. A half-man, half-dinosaur who opposes the X-Men, Sauron is also known as Dr. Karl Lykos. He's a minor adversary. The son of an explorer's guide, Karl Lykos went to Tierra del Fuego with his father when he was a teenager. Karl got bitten by one of the mutant pterodactyls while shielding a buddy from them. He learned that he could now suck the life force from other species as he was recovering. He was continually tempted to exercise his new ability because he believed that doing so would help him survive by siphoning off their life force. Karl graduated from medical school and worked as a doctor, geneticist, and hypnotist. He hypnotized people to treat them while also stealthily draining their vitality. He became a vampiric, pterodactyl-like creature with human intelligence and extraordinary hypnotic abilities after absorbing mutant energy. In honor of J.R.R. Tolkien's villain, he gave himself the moniker Sauron. He escaped mankind and went to the Savage Land. In the Savage Land, Sauron commands an army of pteranodons equipped with laser mounts to assault the agents of Smash's jump jet. During the battle, Sauron manages to knock A-bomb off the jump jet by stealing the energy from one of the pteranodons. The reign of man on Earth will come to an end, according to Sauron, who also claims that he and his dinosaurs avoided annihilation. She-Hulk, Scar, and Sauron use a special drill in the supervolcano to locate Sauron's lizard men friends, while Devil Dinosaur, who is under Sauron's influence, attacks A-bomb and Red Hulk. When Sauron learns of the situation at the giant volcano, he orders Devil Dinosaur to complete the task. As Devil Dinosaur made friends with A-bomb after escaping Sauron's mental control, he regurgitated A-bomb. Devil Dinosaur aids in Sauron's soldiers' conflict and drill eradication. To mind-control Scar, Sauron engages him in combat while also draining the energies of She-Hulk. As they arrive, the Hulk battles Sauron as the Red Hulk, A-bomb, and Devil Dinosaur struggle to halt the drill. The next attempt by Sauron to drain the Hulk's energy is unsuccessful. After the drill was destroyed, Sauron runs away from the Pteranodons while weak. The agents of Smash bring Devil Dinosaur back with them as their pet. In Into the Negative Zone, it's revealed that the leader provided the tools and know-how for Sauron's scheme to set off the supervolcano. In Mission Impossible Man, a coastal amusement park is attacked by Sauron's army of ancient sea monsters. In the end, he engaged in combat with Impossible Man and the agents of Smash. When Impossible Man successfully captures Sauron, Sauron absorbs his powers and uses them to assault the Hulks. As Sauron is being punched by the two-headed Compound Hulk, who is Impossible Man's fusion of the Hulk and Red Hulk, he grows 3 additional heads. Because Sauron couldn't control any reptiles, he recruited Fin Fang Foom to assist him. In Monsters No More, he makes an appearance as a Crash leader's agent. No one can see the agents of Smash since they're all wearing stealth belts made of adamantium. In Days of Future Smash Part 1, Dino Era, the king of the dinosaur-dominated era created by the leader was King Sauron. He uses General Thunder Lizard Rossosaurus, an Ankylosaurus, in his scheme to wipe out the prehistoric people. King Sauron was overthrown by the agents of Smash with the aid of El Diablo and Spider-Raptor, and as a result, he fell into a pit of enormous spiders. After Hulk defeated leaders' ambitions in the Mesozoic period, the next timeline was no longer ruled by dinosaurs. In Days of Future Smash Part 5, the Tomorrow Smashers, 4 Paradox monsters were summoned by the leader via the time belt from the alternate timelines he'd established. A frost giant Sauron, Red Skelosaurus, Gamma Raptor, and a vampire devil dinosaur were all part of the beast. The agents of Smash were transported back to their respective timelines when the leaders defeated them. Sauron is a cruel and angry character who only cares about eliminating the Hulk and the agents of Smash and taking control of the planet. He intends to make it into a dinosaur-only world. Carl Lycos is a pretty average doctor when he takes on the shape of a human, save for the fact that he still has the power to draw life energy from other organisms to keep himself alive. He'll change into his pterodactyl form and temporarily take some of the mutant's abilities if he absorbs the life force of a mutant. Sauron can fire bursts of concussive life force energy from his hands thanks to the Weapon X program's manipulation. He has superhuman strength and the capacity to fly to the limit of natural winged flight when he becomes the pterodactyl form. Sauron possesses several extra weapons in warfare, including a deadly beak and pointed talons on his hands and feet. He obtained the power to breathe fire at some point before making an appearance with the new Avengers, and he used it to burn the second Black Widow as retaliation for shooting him. When he assumes his pterodactyl shape, he also possesses an enhanced hypnotic ability that demands direct eye contact to work. He frequently used his hypnotic abilities to induce horrific beliefs in his victims that their comrades have turned into monsters. Wrecker. Thor featured Dirk Garthwaite for the first time. Due to his aggressive inclinations, he lost his job on a demolition team. Shortly after adopting the nickname The Wrecker, he made a costume, went on a spree of robberies, and left a crowbar as his mark at each crime site. After knocking out Thor's brother Loki, he goes into the hotel room where he was staying and dons his helmet. His crowbar became unbreakable as a consequence, and he also developed superhuman strength and endurance. With his newly discovered strength, he easily beats Thor, who had previously had his strength diminished by his father Odin. Sif then defeats the Wrecker. The Wrecker is easily beaten the next time he challenges Thor. Dirk Garthwaite has superhuman strength, endurance, and durability thanks to an Asgardian enchantment on a crowbar. The Wrecking Crew's skills were cut in half when he first shared the Norn power with them. The Wrecker no longer has this limitation as a result of his training with Ulik the Troll. He's now able to use his abilities to the fullest and employ the crowbar in a manner similar to how Thor employs the magical hammer Mjolnir. He's held off the Thunder God Thor in combat and destroyed enormous structures in a matter of minutes using the crowbar. Crowbars are generally used by Wrecker as offensive throwing and blunt weapons. The secondary powers of the crowbar include energy absorption and projection, illusion creation, force field creation, small earthquake creation, teleportation, and returning to the Wrecker when thrown. The Wrecker also has a mental connection to the crowbar and has the power to psychologically manipulate anybody who comes into contact with it. The Wrecker is the Wrecking Crew's most powerful member since his crowbar gives them their abilities. Tyrannus. The last emperor of Rome was Romulus Augustus. Tyrannus considers himself to be a born king. Tyrannus assembled a massive army thousands of years ago to overthrow King Arthur and take control of all of England. After Tyrannus' invasion was unsuccessful, Merlin the magician sent him into the land of Subterranea. Tyrannus discovered a colony of subterraneans there. He believed that even though they weren't ordinary human beings and some had lost their capacity to talk due to breeding, they were still individuals who needed to be led. Tyrannus succeeded in locating the Fountain of Youth, which he drank to achieve immortality. Tyrannus is endowed with extraordinary mental abilities, such as telepathy, mind control, and psychic manipulation. Tyrannus drank water from the Spring of Youth in Subterranea. As a result, he stopped aging. Tyrannus is a technological whiz who also employs deviant equipment.
I am a beast forever because of you!
Sasquatch. Dr. Walter Lankowski is a member of Alpha Flight, a well-known physicist who is also a professor of physics and biophysics at McGill University. He's a native of Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, and is of Polish Jewish descent. He played football with the Green Bay Packers in the past. He has the power to change into a powerful beast with orange hair that resembles the fabled Sasquatch. Willpower is what causes his metamorphosis. Lankowski's transformation has given him more power, endurance, and injury resistance. He can leap enormous distances and possesses keen claws as well. Lankowski's self-experimentation with gamma radiation led to the development of these abilities. In his lab near the Arctic Circle, Lankowski assaulted himself with gamma rays to resemble the Hulk. Lankowski speculated that the aurora borealis could have something to do with why he changed into an orange behemoth instead of a green one, as gamma-irradiated people generally do. Unbeknownst to Lankowski, his lab apparatus created a portal between our world and the realm of great beasts, not the gamma rays, which transformed him into Sasquatch. Tanarak, a mythical creature, entered Lankowski's body when this gateway was opened and gave him his abilities. Lankowski had to get maintenance skills. Sasquatch fought the X-Men while a member of the Canadian superhero group Alpha Flight seized Wolverine. He eventually engaged in combat with the Hulk and later engaged in conflict with the Wendigo alongside the Hulk while assuming the guise of Sasquatch, and for a while he was rather effective. Sasquatch was seen assisting Alpha Flight in combating Atuma as Nerkod, Breaker of Oceans, and rescuing people from Nerkod's flood during the Fear Itself narrative. After repelling and defeating Nerkod, Alpha Flight returns to their headquarters only to discover that Gary Cody and his newly elected Unity Party had betrayed them. Sasquatch's gamma energy is sufficiently depleted while under the control of the Unity Party for him to transform back into Walter Lankowski, his human form. Agent Jeff Brown informs Walter at Parliament Hill that his football-related concussions will make him act less humanly when he transforms back into a Sasquatch. Additionally, Jeff promises Walter that he'll soon reach Unity. Shaman subsequently frees Walter after taking down Agent Jeff Brown. When the Mayan gods emerge on Earth and Alpha Flight helps Red Hulk, Sasquatch is spotted alongside them. One of the confrontations in which Alpha Flight assists Red Hulk in taking them on leaves Aurora, Sasquatch, and Snowbird in a coma. Although the writer decides how much superhuman power Lankowski has as Sasquatch, it is high. He has demonstrated strength rivaling the Hulk on a few occasions, lifting military destroyers and stopping DC-10 jets mid-takeoff. Sasquatch may therefore be considered one of the Marvel Universe's heroes with the greatest strength. Powerhouses like the Hulk, Hercules, Colossus, Juggernaut, and Thing have been challenged by Sasquatch, though typically without success. Due to a healing component, he possesses exceptionally great endurance in addition to strength. He has sharp claws that can cut through a variety of materials, including wood, stone, human flesh, and several forms of metal. Sasquatch also possesses superhuman strength, speed, and agility. Due to his years playing football, his human form is still quite athletic and powerful, even if he is beyond his prime. His Sasquatch form is 10 feet tall and weighs 2,000 pounds. Sasquatch is protected from harm in Canada's frigid climate by a thick covering of orange fur. He's also an outstanding scientist who focuses on radiation. He retains his intelligence when becoming the Sasquatch character, unlike the Hulk. Annihilus, one of the key enemies in the Hulk and Agents of Smash series, as well as the leader of the Negative Zone, is Annihilus. In Doorway to Destruction Part 1, after countless attempts, Annihilus finally succeeded in creating a wormhole over Vista Verde to invade Earth and steal its natural resources. He decided to send Scar through the portal in his place when faced with the Hulk. After finally succeeding in releasing Annihilus from his interdimensional portal, Scar next dispatched his bugs to battle the Hulks. Red and Scar were captured by Annihilus's bugs before the portal could close due to the blast from Red's Sandblaster's Gamma Core. In Into the Negative Zone, when Leader and Annihilus were together, it was evident that Leader had taken Annihilus's cosmic control rod and altered it. Annihilus retrieved the cosmic control rod and fled after Hulk beat Leader. Annihilus is capable of space vacuum resistance and self-propelled flight. He is protected from the majority of injuries like severe cold, ballistic force, bullets, etc. by the armor he wears, which is essentially an insectoid exoskeleton with certain protective parts. Half-Life. Anthony Masterson was a regular English teacher who unintentionally exposed himself to gamma radiation while the US government was testing gamma bombs. Tony looked to be killed by the radiation, yet he awoke every night in search of the energy he could siphon from living things. Half-Life emerges from his house and approaches a woman who's alone and strolling down the street. He immediately addresses her as his wife. He seizes her and kills her by sapping all of her life force. She is not Barbara, he claims, and he leaves to locate another victim to drain and kill. The leader recalls a chat he had with Half-Life a few hours ago while down in his underground bunker. Half-Life offers to assist the leader to acquire gamma bombs, but the leader brings up his defeat by the Grey Hulk in Half-Life's first mission. Half-Life is told by the leader that if he can kill the Hulk, he can assist in stealing the explosives. Half-Life's clothing has a camera attached to the front so that the leader can see what happens. Half-Life starts to assault a different lady, but the Grey Hulk is alerted by the screams and becomes frightened as he approaches. Half-Life leaps onto the Hulk, grabs him by the neck, and informs him that he's shielded by titanium armor, which the Hulk is now unable to destroy. When Rick Jones appears appears from behind and hits Half-Life in the head with a shovel. The Hulk is then able to toss Half-Life off and he stops weakening the Hulk. When a resident of the town inquires about the Hulk's state of fear, the weak, timid, and defenseless character is on the verge of running away. The Hulk becomes a little enraged by this and restarts the battle in Half-Life. Half-Life has already expended enough energy to make him powerful when Hulk grabs a phone pole and starts to strike him. He lunges to catch the Hulk, but the Hulk leaps high into the air first and lands directly on Half-Life. Just crawling back up through the mud, Half-Life is now soaking up more Hulk energy. As Half-Life continues to use more energy, the Hulk begins to wither. The Hulk says that Half-Life has taken the majority of his energy and that he can now return to his wife, his job as a teacher, and his regular life. The Hulk warns Half-Life that he'll make people afraid of him and that, ultimately, the energy he borrowed from the Hulk will wear off, returning him to his previous state or making him worse. The Hulk tells him that's how he's been living all along. Half-Life simply unleashes all the energy he just took and seems to commit himself since he can't imagine living that way. The original Half-Life is an alien with the power to age any living thing by touching it halfway through its lifetime, at which point it would finally pass away from old age. Victims who come into touch with Half-Life too many times die. The aging she causes is temporary though, and if she passes out quickly enough, like within a few minutes, her victims will return to their usual ages. Half-Life may also control the weak force to break down inorganic materials, such as constructions made of matter and energy. She has the power to produce an undefined amount of strong radiation that's hot enough to melt steel. Half-Life can withstand extreme heat and atomic radiation as well as the impacts of her abilities. Her outfit is constructed of extraterrestrial materials that are resistant to the effects of her power. A vampire-like character from the second Half-Life steals life energy from living things to maintain himself. Even highly strong beings like the Hulk might become quite weak due to him. He had a zombie-like appearance in his normal condition, but when he absorbs a life, he briefly assumes a young and attractive appearance.
Let's see which of us is strong.
Bi-Beast. The Bi-Beast was developed many years ago by an avian race that was itself a subspecies of the Inhumans. It's an android with two heads, one atop the other. The top skull is given knowledge of combat, while the bottom skull was given knowledge of culture. That species vanished for unexplained reasons, leaving the Bi-Beast in its city to fend for itself. Years later, the monster is reminded of its old bird masters when it encounters the Harpy with Bruce Banner. Both are taken prisoner by the Bi-Beast, who orders Banner to repair the city's aging machinery. Instead, Banner decides to heal the Harpy, who quickly transforms back into Betty Ross. The Bi-Beast confronts Banner's bogus persona, the Hulk, after realizing his trick, but is sidetracked as an AIM attack force commanded by MODOK storms the city. The Bi-Beast triggers a self-destruct device and dies in the explosion rather than letting its habitat be taken. Unbeknownst to everyone, the explosion causes a cylinder carrying a second Bi-Beast to be thrown out of the city. It sinks to the ocean floor before being recovered and transported aboard the SHIELD helicarrier. Soon after, a second Bi-Beast awakens. Imbued with memories of the first, it chooses to take control of the helicarrier and direct its missiles towards major cities, since it believes humans are to blame for the destruction of its creators. In the helicarrier, where Bruce Banner later transforms into the Hulk and engages the Bi-Beast once more when Ross realizes the danger, Bruce Banner is forcibly inserted. The two clash and tumble through a SHIELD-activated aperture before falling several miles to the sea. The Bi-Beast vanishes, and it's presumed that it drowned. The Bi-Beast returns after several years. The android kidnaps and imprisons the crews of naval vessels, painstakingly reconstructs the avian Sky Island metropolis, and gathers an army in preparation for yet another retaliation strike against the human race. However, Donald Blake, posing as Thor, is aboard the most recent ship to be attacked, which is sent there by Tony Stark, the Iron Man alter ego, who was aware of Blake's actual identity and needed some more insurance, and he rapidly vanquishes the Bi-Beast and releases the prisoners. The Man-Beast then frees a captured Bi-Beast, and the two fight against Thor and Iron Man as allies. The Bi-Beast is ultimately abducted by the Stranger for research and sent to the Stranger's laboratory realm after being defeated once more. The Bi-Beast escapes with the other prisoners and assaults the Stranger, but is stopped by the protagonist's Power Princess. When Bi-Beast subsequently returns to Earth and engages in combat with the Hulk and She-Hulk, his efficacy is limited due to one of his heads developing an affinity to the latter. Mole Man. When Mole Man went to Subterranea, he was made fun of for his Hollow Earth notions, and his relationship with the Fantastic Four is also referenced. Where they've been imprisoned by the enormous larvae beasts, Hulk runs into Mole Man. When A-Bomb arrives to help, they learn that the larvae beast eggs were laid on a lava-filled floor for incubation. They are also told by Mole Man that before any additional larvae beasts can reach the surface, they must deal with the Queen Larvae Beast. The Moloids are used by Mole Man to combat the Queen Larvae Beast. Following their defeat of the Queen Larvae Beasts, Mole Man and the Moloids head back to Subterranea. He lacks true superpowers, yet he does have increased senses and weaker vision. He's an adept hand-to-hand fighter and is capable of defeating opponents with considerable experience. He commands a legion of underworld creatures that he refers to as his army. He also has a far deeper grasp of technology than the majority of individuals. He uses a sophisticated staff equipped with radar and energy blasters. Miklo. Miklo was given superhuman strength and durability after the Red Ghost deliberately exposed himself and his apes to cosmic rays. He was also given enhanced intellect. The Red Hulk appeared to have murdered him. Later, it was revealed that he belonged to the pets of evil masters. After being exposed to cosmic rays, Miklo gained superhuman strength and durability in addition to greater intelligence. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.